I'm Jim Check. With me, Ian Burns, managing editor out there in the nation's capital. I'm here in Kelowna, BC. Traffic flowing nicely in our live shop behind me here. Kind of a cloudy, overcast day here in the Okanagan. And it is February 19th, a Thursday. And we got lots. We got a really big show as usual. Headlines. Mercenaries, now welcome in Canada. Does democracy still exist in Canada? I had a sleepless night over that. I just couldn't believe what's going on. The state broadcaster runs cover for the Liberals. Is that odd? What was the deal for Giroux, and was it enough? CBC caught on a hot mic. Must have been between sausage rolls. Immigration fiasco was all engineered. Come on in, no questions asked. Watching Canada deteriorate is painful. Judge says CBC A-OK to be secretive in spending. Who writes these headlines? Bureaucracy, bloat, and cost obscene as Canadians await crumbs. CRA to shift focus to big fish. I got a fish for you to go after. I know where the fish lives. It's in the Bahamas. Get a boat. CEO of Canada's Infrastructure Bank makes serious bank. Carney could cut food inflation, but isn't. I guess the question is, why not? More tax hikes on the way, fool. Who's the fool when it comes to energy? BC Finance Minister says we need to make money too. No graves exhumed. MAID making international news. Canada makes news, international news, for all the wrong reasons. Hodgson invokes God in discussing energy. That was surprising, no? I don't know if you watched that. Grokpedia gaining on Wikipedia. U.S. fights back on censorship. And this one from your homeland, the sad sword tale of a prince's fall from grace. Iranian calls out the UN. Board of Peace makes first meeting. Trump getting all kinds of accolades. Market says Iran gets military action before Christmas. All that and a lot more on the Really Big Show. We do have a really big show. Lots to talk about for sure. If you're watching live, thank you for living in, or however you want to call that, for jumping in on the stream. We encourage you to comment, to chat, to like, subscribe, do all those things. Tell us where you're watching from. We keep, when we get all these things going, we forget up a few things when we get going. Is like a Fool of the Day and Waste of the Day and all these, because everybody's that's a member. We're closing the door on almost 100 members. I think we're about 3 short of 100 members already. So if you want to be a thinking Canadian and want to join our members, that would be much appreciated. Also, we're going to do our first show just exclusive for members tomorrow. So if you want to be part of that, you just have to hit that join button and become a member of a thinking Canadian. And again, help us get this out to a wider audience. God knows it needs to get out to a lot more people. We need to share the news and the truth with way more people. And we share feedback. And here's another one here. I enjoy that you allow comments, unlike the CBC. Of course, we report to you. Why don't you matter? So CBC doesn't seem to want to answer to its viewers, nor does it want to answer to the public as how it spends its money. We'll get to that story later. And another person says, I'm always respectful of conversation on YouTube, but I find that some of your comments are unavailable and shows. Well, lots of times we cut this up into many clips, and then sometimes if the clip just gets uploaded, there won't be comments there. And the live comments, you actually have to click on the live tab to see all the live comments if you're watching this after the live. So there is comments, but the live comments will be buried under the live there. You have to find that too. And then we also get emails. People sometimes email in, and this one here says you only publish Dan Elvis's comments, and then goes on to say that that Jim and Ian seem to have a certain ideology, and we only publish things like that. And then maybe I'll let you say your response to this person here, because you wrote back.
Well, I just fired that off. I mean, I didn't. That's not a particular. I didn't sit there and brood on that as my masterpiece. But we only, Dan Albus is when we've said before Dan Albus is a good chap, I'm saying that exclusively in the sense that he actually responds to media requests. You can basically, although I don't want to give people ideas because you might get harassed, but you can basically interview Dan Albus whenever you want. You ask him and he will appear. Gavin Dew's like that. Obviously, these are opposition politicians, and that's why I'm not convinced Dan would be available for interview if he was in government, but that's another story. Stephen Fuhr, on the other hand, who we've called out a few times, not so much, though he was speaking to CBC yesterday, so you can learn in what looks like, his office potentially, and I don't know if he's in Kelowna right now. But it's very hard to speak to Stephen Fuhr, very easy to speak to Dan Albus. Dan Albus sends us a column. He has done for years. He sends it to all the newspapers in the region. We publish that column, just like all the other newspapers do. I asked Stephen Fuhr if he wanted to write a column, and he hasn't responded. His person said, "We'll think about it," or something along those lines, and I haven't heard a response since. I asked him just like the week that he was elected, basically. And we're being attacked. I don't mean to pick on this person, or I wouldn't want to pick on this person, because this is something that we get a lot. We get it in the neck a lot, where it's like, why are all your comments like it's Gavin Dew's column? And when Renee Merrifield used to write one, it'd be like, it's Renee's column, it's Dan Albus's column, it's Tracy Gray's column. Like, where are all the liberals? The reason is that Now Media's headquarters is in Kelowna, and it's a very conservative place. So all the officials, all the representative politicians are basically conservatives. So yeah, we publish their columns. That's just like the duty of the press. And then the one liberal, Mr. Stephen Fuhr, doesn't want to know us, doesn't think we exist.
Even though I know him personally, he won't respond to 7 emails and multiple requests for, and we sent another one, multiple requests for interview.
Although we did, look, just to hammer home what I said at the beginning there about opposition politicians. Opposition politicians, like, their only real job is to get into power. So they're happy to yap all the time. Of course they are. They want maximum exposure, except Pierre Poilievre, but that's a complicated one that I can't be bothered to talk about. But Stephen Fuhr, not in opposition, but when he wasn't in power, when he wanted to be the MP, the Liberal MP, we did speak to him a few times, didn't we?
He would call us. He would literally call us.
To interview.
Yeah, he would call and beg for interviews. Not from me, but from Kent Mulgad. He would literally call and ask for interviews.
And unfortunately, that's how it works. When politicians don't have any power, they want to speak all the time. When they do have power, they don't want to. Though I'm not going to sort of condemn Dan Albus there when he hasn't done anything. Maybe if he was in power, he would still speak to us. I don't know. I'm not going to assume that to be the case. But the fact right now is he's an opposition politician, and he's very good with interviews. Stephen Fuhr is a government politician. He's a politician with power, and he doesn't even respond to interviews, or requests, emails, anything. So make of that what you will.
Again, we would, and we just got a new member. Thank you to Chuck Adams for joining Thinking Canadian. And it's easy to hit. You just hit that join button. And then you support independent journalism. If you've had enough of the CBC, maybe after watching this show for a bit, when we show you some of the stuff the CBC is doing, maybe you will have enough of the CBC and the state-funded media here in Canada. This is one of the best independent journalists out there, Holly Dona Blacklocks. Our political parties telling us it doesn't matter who you vote for, candidates will do what they want. When someone tells you who they are, believe them. And then this is, she also calls out Canadian press. And if you noticed that yesterday, Ian and I talked, that it seems like Canadian press, CBC, are running cover for, the floor crossers, Matt Jeanerou, Michael Maw, where they just seem to want to count. They want to tally how many seats that for Carney to get his majority. They don't seem to be worried about. Ian said it yesterday. Jeanerou's seat, Matt Jeanerou's seat, 6 times conservative seat, and he won the majority of votes, 50% of the vote, 30,000 votes, 30,000 votes for him in Edmonton, Riverbend there, 30,000 votes, backroom meeting with Mark Carney. And then he gets a special job, we'll show you later. And all of a sudden he decides for 30,000 people to nix their votes and turn them all red. He decided that. Michael Maw decided Michael Maw, a nobody, at least with Jean, he's elected several times and he was part of the UCP. And then you have Michael Maw, a nobody, 27,000 votes, backroom deal, all of a sudden the right-hand man for Mark Carney. He decides that 27,000 votes don't matter. So what, I mean, I honestly had a tough time sleeping last night. I'm just wondering, like, does the voter matter in Canada? Is the backroom deal more prevalent here in Canada than it is for voting? And if that's the case, does Pierre Poilievre not to know how to do backroom deals? Because it seems like he's getting one up there, 3 floor crossings here. So close to 100,000 votes nixed, and more than 100,000 when you count Terrebonne, where Elections Canada and the Liberals really just crapped the bed on that one and just took that riding because it was a gift by Elections Canada. And they did nothing about it. An absolute shame. So what is the one thing voters have, the one thing Canadian citizens have is their vote. That's the only thing they really have, is their vote. And the CBC and the CP in that, they're not talking about the voter. They're talking about Mark Carney's seat count. Seems odd.
Holly Dawn, though, here, who, I have a lot of respect for, but I'm still going to point this out. She says, the political parties telling us it doesn't matter who you vote for, candidates will do what they want. That is, I hate to bring it up again, guys, but that is the Westminster system. You elect someone for their character, and then they can do what they want. That is the system. Like, sort of theoretically anyway, if you were going to write this in a textbook, that's what it's supposed to be like. They're supposed to make their own decisions, and we're supposed to select them because we trust them to make those decisions. That's supposed to be the way this works, representative democracy. It's not direct democracy like the Swiss have, where there's lots of referenda on every question, and the citizens decide basically all the important issues. Instead, we put people as our proxy into Parliament, and they decide. They use their own wits. But, like I said, that's in a textbook. In reality, of course, it's not quite like that, is it? And I would bet that, I said this yesterday, how many people now listening to this can remember the names of the people, even the people that they voted for in their own riding, going back several elections? How many, and particularly when they didn't win as well, trying to think. But you will remember the party. You will say, oh, no, yeah, I voted Liberal in 2015 or something. You will remember that. You won't remember the person, because the person is, unless the person was Justin Trudeau or something like that, you're not really going to remember who they were. Most people don't, because people do indeed vote for the party. They don't vote for the individual. That's just the truth. That's the reality of it. So that this kind of like theory and reality are clashing here. And this is her second sentence that I think covers this, though. She says, when someone tells you who they are, believe them. Martin Genereux has told people who he is. He doesn't agree with what I've said, or he does agree, and he's decided anyway that, yeah, I know better. I'll be a Liberal now, even though people vote for a Conservative. And she also, in that other tweet that you highlighted, she also points out that, people that switch aren't usually very popular. A few people in history have done it, like Winston Churchill, who we've spoken about before, who did it twice. But really, that's like, Winston Churchill, Matt Genereux, a little bit of a difference there, isn't there? So I don't think, Michael Maher, I don't think that those people are going to succeed necessarily in those ridings. But I would also mention, because you're talking about democracy and you're talking about a lot of people are talking about democracy, aren't they? And they're talking about the sort of pitiful state of democracy in Canada. Bear in mind that in 1942, Mackenzie King, the Prime Minister, he'd won an election based on the idea that he wasn't going to do certain things, such as implement conscription. And then he realized that he needed conscription because they were hungry for men in Europe. And what did Mackenzie King do? He held a referendum, or a plebiscite, as they called it in those days. He held a referendum, and I've got it here, the text. It says, are you in favour of releasing the government from any obligations arising out of any past commitments restricting the methods of raising men for military service? So he asked to be released because he knew he was changing his tune and he knew it was a big deal. He'd been elected, his government had been elected on a promise or on one set of promises, and they wanted to change that. And they thought, we're going to ask the people. And he won. They were released, so to speak. And I just think that's the 1940s. Are we really so much, have we been degraded to such an extent now that sort of attitude, that principle is just gone? That sense of decency and that sense of a need to let the Canadian people express their will, or in this case, the people of Edmonton Riverbend, don't they deserve the opportunity to make this decision if they agree with this decision made by Matt Jennery?
I would say,
yeah, rather sad. I agree with the pity.
The selfishness is and the thirst for power can't be excused. The selfishness of Matt Jennery, and we're going to show you what he got for the trinkets he got for his character, his integrity, and his turning the back on 30,000 people. I mean, that is the one thing. This is the part that bothers me the most. 30,000 people came out and voted for him. And it wasn't like he was a fence sitter. Do you know what I mean? Like he was in a conservative riding and had been in there for long. Plus, he was part of the UCP. The other point I want to bring up, maybe I'll bring it up later. I'll bring it up now, is what do the other Liberals in cabinet think? As it's just almost like a Joseph's coat thing where these new people are being treated and put up on pedestals while the Stephen Guilbeaults and that are being pushed to the back. You have to wonder what they think. Why all of a sudden Michael Ma goes to China, Matt Jennery gets a special job, where's Karina Gold? You know what I mean? Like what kind of deals are happening? What other deals are being done in the background? And here's the block. The block, Yves Blanchette there saying, and this is in the Terrebonne writing, this is an absolute travesty again by Elections Canada, because it was the one vote. They had the vote as well, tie vote. It was a one vote decision. And Elections Canada had the one vote that was sent in time. They just didn't count it. And instead of calling the election, like calling for a by-election, a runoff, they didn't. They just awarded it to the Liberals, and the Liberals didn't do anything, and the candidate or the MP didn't do anything. They just took the win. It's almost as bad as like, Canadians aren't cheats. Canadians are not cheats, and we're not cowards. So why are we acting like? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, oh, why all of a sudden do we accept cheaters? And why all of a sudden do we accept fear all the time? Why all of a sudden are we okay with that? But Cabinet's bid to engineer majority control of Parliament rests in a looming by-election in the Montreal suburb of Terrebonne, where the Liberals won by a single vote. And Blanchette says, we have a certain weight. The crucial vote follows yesterday's defection to the Liberal caucus. So this riding now is all important. All important. This riding is all important.
Yeah, because they're going to win the other two. I think it's fair to say.
The Freeland riding, probably like a given, and Blair's riding. Those are two strong ridings, right? So this one, it all comes down to this Terrebonne riding. And the Bloc held this riding for 10 years prior to that one vote upset. So, I mean, this party has also been known to do lots of games, lots of things, and the media runs cover for it. So I'd say Yves Blanchette has an uphill battle because the media in Canada is not fair. And we're going to show you a lot of it. We're going to show you. So this is why you got to help us get a bigger, stronger voice. We need a bigger, stronger voice to push back against a media that runs, not only is biased, but runs cover and shields the Liberal Party from accountability and transparency. That's the worst part. That's the part that people aren't understanding yet. They act as a shield. Because right now the Liberal Party sits at 169 seats. That's with Jean Roux's crossing the floor. The Conservatives at 141, the Bloc at 22, NDP at 7, Green at 1, and the vacancies are 3. And like Ian said, those two of those, Freeland and Blair's seat, you know, typically Liberal strongholds. So those will be battles for Pierre Poilievre for sure. But
there are other battles going on for Pierre. I mean, the rumor mill now is working at maximum capacity. talking about other. I've heard as many as 3 or 4 more Tories to defect. I mean, that could just be bollocks. That could just be bluster.
Could be manufactured.
Still, I don't know. Mark Carney is. He's got a sort of skip in his step, hasn't he, lately? He's an awfully jolly chap of late. I sense that that's probably true, at least a couple more. And that is not just a Liberal majority and joy for Mark Carney. That could well be the end of Pierre Poilievre, even though he's just won a massive majority at the leadership review. If he's losing MPs like every month, I don't know, there's a good chance that somebody might sharpen their knives.
And then, of course, none other than in the running for Fool of the Day, almost every time she shows up, the smugness there is gotta, put her in the running.
Picture, isn't it?
the smugness, just like, listen to this.
Pierre Poilievre is accusing the Liberal Party of getting a majority with dirty backroom deals. What is your response to that? Well, he just has to make sure he can keep MPs in his own party, that's all.
He just needs to be able to keep his own MPs in his own party. It's his own problem.
That's good.
Doesn't matter. She was very, very happy there, wasn't she? Which it's good to see someone happy anyway.
The question is, what about the voter? It's not about Pierre. It's not about Mark Carney. It's not about Jolie. It's the betrayal of the voter. The voter, he gets a vote usually once every 4 years, and it's not being respected. Not being respected. Call a by-election if that's the case. Let the electorate decide. Let the electorate decide. I mean, this has to become put into. I mean, they tried to get it into place before. It must be done because the voter must matter in Canada. The voter must matter in Canada.
It really, I mean, just think about it. I often find it helps. This is also abstract, isn't it? This, and it's also distant and it's like theoretical. But I find it helps to think about it. Imagine yourself in this position. And nowadays, you can imagine yourself as an MP, can't you? Because they're also mediocre. I'm sure that the average IQ of the people watching this, if you merge them together, it will be higher than the House of Commons.
You and I could kick their ass. We could walk in there and run the place, like compared to what we're watching. Like Jolie there, I mean, and people can say in this comments here, do you think Ian and I could replace Melanie Jolie? I wouldn't even need any training. I can just basically, I'd find my way. I'd find my way to the washroom, I think, by myself. I wouldn't need any kind of like even a tour.
But anyway, to finish that idea, because they are so bloody low grade, aren't they? Because of that, I think it's easy to imagine yourself, or anyone for that matter, anybody you know, anyone at all. You can imagine any Canadian now being an MP. It used to be a position of some sort of prestige, didn't it? It used to mean that you were a big deal in some way, but obviously that's not true now. But because of that, you can imagine yourself there. So imagine yourself there and imagine you defected as well. Imagine you had let's say you had really good reasons for doing it and you defected to another party. What would you do? Seriously, like, what would you do? Would you turn off your comments on social media, issue a tiny statement, and then just bugger off, evaporate into the ether? I can honestly say I don't think I'd do that. I think I really would call a by-election because you're there to represent other people. You're there for other people. You are a servant, as we keep saying. You're not the boss. You're the servant. You need to ask permission. And like I say, Mackenzie King, just whatever you think of Mackenzie King, quite a controversial figure, but obviously he did the right thing there, didn't he? And I think you can recognize that. Anybody can recognize that. So why doesn't he do the right thing? Why doesn't Michael Maher do the right thing? You've got to call a by-election, haven't you? When you flip the table and you change everything about a vote that was just held.
It is the ultimate betrayal of the voter, and the voter is supposed to matter. It is the ultimate betrayal, and you have to live that for the rest of your life, Matt Jean-Louis. You have to live with what you've done, and we're going to show you what you traded for, and it never works out when you trade for something like that. I mean, you live in that community. You have to answer. Your wife has to answer to that stuff. Your family has to answer to what you've done. And that's why you turned your comments off. And that's why you only go to friendly media. We've reached out to Matt Jean-Leroux. We've asked him to come on here and explain it to Canadians in honest answers, not CBC softball interviews. Here it is. Here is Matt Jean-Leroux here getting a meeting with Mark Carney. And just look at this. Just watch this here. And he gets special advisor, economic security partnerships. So he gets himself, more money in a special thing. And this is what I mean. Like, this is a trade. He was given something. And what did he sell his integrity for? Let's watch this.
The government team, it's a great honor to be on the same team as you at a crucial time for this city, for this province, for this country. Matt brings a wealth of experience despite his young demeanor. He brings a wealth of experience. I'm very fortunate Matt is going to be lending some of that expertise directly to me as we're building our partnerships. I was going to serve as a special advisor on economic and security partnerships at this crucial time for our country as we're developing those. And we have signed now 19 agreements on the economic and security side in the last 8 months over 4 continents. There'll be more to come, but there's also putting those agreements into action, and that takes the level of ties and experience that Matt brings to the team.
It looked like Matt was going to start crying there if I was reading body language. Matt should start crying because I think the voters...
Have you seen those examples of, I think it was Vietnam, wasn't it? When the American soldier was captured and they made him record a video. I think he was, did he blink? He was like blinking Morse code to say like, I'm not doing this willingly. It was almost like that, but he was doing it with his mouth instead of just like doing Morse code with his frown.
Mark Carney has already demonstrated he doesn't believe in democracy. The Terrebonne one is one of such examples. The Online News Act is another such example. So many things they've demonstrated the Liberals don't want to be held accountable. The secrecy, the vaccine file is being sealed for 15 years. Another one. No accountability, no transparency. The Stephen Guilbeault file still won't be released. None of that. Well, what, Matt, what are you doing, Matt? What are you doing? Is it worth it?
By the way, I referenced Mackenzie King and we talked about Winston Churchill and stuff. I've remembered as we've been speaking a more recent example. There was a chap, and you can all Google this. There's a chap called Douglas Carswell in Britain. He was a Conservative Party MP, and he defected to Nigel Farage's party. And he immediately resigned and held a by-election and won it with an even larger share of the vote than he had in when he went as a Conservative. So that was 2014, not that long ago. An example of the exact same, I know it's a different country, but it's the same political system. So just in case you're thinking like what we're talking about is pie in the sky and we're being ridiculous and we're being like, we're talking about principles that people wouldn't actually show in the real world. Douglas Carswell, Google him, like, and he justified it by saying the by-election, he said, I can't sit here having joined another party and represent the people of this constituency. It's not fair. It has to be an election. So, it can be done. It has been done. They should do it.
And Mark Carney referenced all the agreements he signed. He signed MOUs. They're not agreements. What agreements? What? Like what? They would be throwing them out there like they actually had something worthwhile. They would be advertising because they advertise the Strong Pass still. It's like one of their big things. Like the coupon that they have for riding via rail and going into museums. Ridiculous. Here's a piece from CTV. They asked a Conservative a question here.
He ran as a Conservative a year ago. So did the others who crossed the floor. They ran as Conservatives a year ago. In Matt Jean-Leroux's case, he's been elected as a Conservative 6 times. So when did his feelings change, right? And he cites the Prime Minister's Davos speech as the big moment that, the lights went on and he became a Mark Carney Liberal. the Prime Minister gave a good speech in Davos. Pierre Poilievre even said so. There's very little daylight between the Conservative position on foreign policy and the Liberal position on foreign policy. And it was a good speech, but it was a speech. And I think Matt Genero, looking the constituents of his very conservative riding in Alberta in the eye, when he starts knocking on doors, he's going to get a bit of a wake-up call that these people didn't vote for a good speech in Davos. They voted for a conservative member of parliament to represent their conservative values, and that's not what they're getting.
I mean, just repeated what we said.
Oh, but I would say, you think he's going to knock on doors? Good for you. I don't. I don't think he's going to knock on any doors.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's about the voter. I know some people are even on here gloating. Like, I mean, respect the voter, respect democracy. That's the thing we're talking about. It's not about win at all costs, because Canadians aren't cheaters. Like, I mean, for the most part, I don't think most Canadians are welcome cheating, like you said, in curling there. I mean, that is an embarrassment as well. We shouldn't be cheaters. If anything, Canadians shouldn't be cheaters. We should want everything fair and square. Because that's what, we're not Americans. Isn't that what they say all the time when Justin Trudeau? What separates us from America? Well, we're not Americans because we're better people. This is better? This is better?
Well, Carney, a couple of days ago in French, when he's talking about Christian nationalism in the US versus civic nationalism in Canada, a lot of that was just, we're nice and they're not kind of thing, wasn't it? Like, we believe in fairness and whatever else he said. I think he said social justice or something like that. That is supposed to be the sort of in the basket of Canadian virtues, for sure. And yet, when it boils down to it, not so much.
I can tell you right now, this would not happen with a free and independent media in Canada, because the first one that crossed would have got roasted by the media, because they would have went and said, what happened to the voters? But nothing. They were basically coddled and just like, oh, why did Mark Carney this? So they're just like, Again, well, the consequences aren't that bad. So they're just like, I get this and that, and the consequences aren't horrible. So the media in Canada is compromised. The media in Canada shields the Liberals, so it makes it easier. It is the media in Canada here that the Liberals have intentionally crippled.
Yeah. And part of the reason why, what's his name? Douglas Carswell in England, part of the reason that he held that by-election, I'm sure, was because he sat down and thought about it, and he knew that the media were going to hound him. And every time he tried to speak, he was going to be asked, when are you going to call a by-election? When are you going to resign, call a by-election? Like, that was going to follow him around. But as you point out, or in the United States, indeed, it would also happen in the US. It's not just Britain. And lots of other countries. France, I think, it's fair to say the French would have a go. There'd be some eggs flying around, rotten tomatoes. But that's not true in Canada. In Canada, there is just such a compliant media. They are so worthless. I'm sorry, friends in the media.
One party, though. One party, right? They're actually attack dogs on the other.
Be some heat. There'd probably be some heat if, let's imagine Mark Carney won a majority of 2 or something in the election, and then 2 MPs crossed the floor and joined the Tories. I think they would be followed around quite a lot, wouldn't they? And asked why have they subverted the will of the Canadian people, and when are they gonna resign? Yeah, but it's not just that. There is the bias, obviously. I think anybody with functioning ears and eyes can see that the main Canadian media outlets are biased in a liberal direction. That's true, but it's not just that. They're also not very good, which is completely independent of that. And they're just bashful, deferent little creatures that don't want to ask questions of politicians. That's the truth.
I think that is the bigger truth too. Not only are they mostly incompetent, they're also compromised. Not a great combination. We are one shy of 100 members, so if the next person that wants to hit the member button, that would be massively appreciated. You could be member 100. We're going to do our first show tomorrow for members only, and we welcome Sin Meister, who was member 99, and we just started memberships. I think it was last week or the week before we started membership. So last week we started that. So appreciate all the members that joined Thinking Canadians. It's very much appreciated. And here's Rosie Barton. Listen for the hot mic comment here as Rosie explains, it covers for the Liberals. Listen in.
Officers don't always do that well when the time comes to be elected again. But there's also, the reality that some people in Alberta are kind of warming up to the Prime Minister because he has taken markedly different positions on issues that matter to them, whether it be energy development or climate change measures that he's backed off on. So maybe Mr. Genereux feels like his riding is starting to move in that direction as well.
Rosie, thank you. The CBC's Chief Political Correspondent Rosemary Barton live in Ottawa. Minister of Industry Mélanie Joly is speaking to reporters in Montreal. Let's listen.
It's because it's all made up anyway.
Let's have the sausage rolls out. Let's get the bucket of golden sausage rolls out there. It's all made up anyway, according to Rosemary. There you go.
That's really funny, that, isn't it?
They live off.
Because she knows. I mean, a lot of people might think that she's just daft and she doesn't understand journalism. But obviously that's not true. She knows. And that makes it a little bit worse, really, doesn't it? She knows that what she's doing is a load of bollocks.
Well, I mean,
she's laughing about it. She's giving it the old, wicked laugh.
I would never accuse Rosie Barton of being stupid. That's for sure.
Yeah, some people do, though. I mean, that certainly does the rounds, doesn't it? People say, oh, she's a terrible journalist and all this. She doesn't know what she's doing. I mean,
she knows what she does. She knows what she does. Like in the trucker thing, when she right away came out and said, Russian money. She's doing the job that she's being paid to do. To sow dissent, to label, to misinform, and to minimize and marginalize. There you go. Number 100, Big Fat. Is that how you say that? Big Fat? Is that how it goes? Big Fat 1306?
Yeah.
101.
I don't know what the meaning is of fat spelled with PH, but I think it might have a slightly different meaning from old-fashioned fat.
There you go. Thank you for those two. That's awesome. We appreciate that. And somebody said that they would do it. They just can't afford it right now. Well, then we don't want you to do anything you can't afford. But you can help us by hitting the subscribe button and sharing this and getting this out to more people. Independent journalism must win this battle. This is a must-win battle against government corrupted media. This is a must-win battle for to save Canada. Thank you, Van City, for joining as well. This is like I said, this is a must-win. We must win this battle. Independent journalists all across Canada need to start standing together. There's a lot of us out there. There's the Sam Coopers. Holly Doan is one of the best ones that I've seen. Holly Doan and Blacklocks. Subscribe to her if you can. And there's a lot of them. Van Palmer. There's tons of them out there. And Brian Lilly. I mean, some of them work for larger places. Terry Newman. But follow them. Unfollow CBC. Unfollow CTV. Unfollow Global. Block them from your feeds and start following journalists that make a difference. Thank you for the contribution there. It's a real Norbeaster. We do thank you.
I would just we kind of went over it, skipped over it, but I would agree. I'd say I agree with Rosemary Barton that was completely made up. If you're actually listening to what she was saying, there's been a trend towards the Liberals in Alberta or something like that, and maybe he's recognizing that, Matt Genereux, and that's why he's defected. Something along those lines. Yeah, that is completely made up. That's complete bollocks, complete nonsense. And there's lots of discredit here for Rosemary Barton, but also credit at least that she saw that, but massive discredit that she still just said it anyway live on air, something that she didn't believe in. How many times, you have to ask the question, how many times has she done that as well? Is Rosemary Barton secretly like this really plugged in, astute woman that knows what's going on, but she's just playing along? I mean, it reflects very poorly on her.
You're just coming to that?
Well, I don't believe in, I want to have an instinctively, I want to give people the sort of benefit of the doubt. That's how I prefer to operate.
Sausage rolls. We need more sausage rolls. Let's have some golden sauce, because this is a golden sausage roll moment for sure. The CBC, if anybody doesn't understand, we'll explain the sausage rolls is part of our shtick, I guess, because the journalists there would rather get sausage rolls than tell the truth. And that was a golden moment for sure for the CBC.
Maybe that's why she laughed like that. Maybe that's what that screech was for, because she'd been handed the bucket.
I was going to play this other clip from CBC, and they're just spreading. I mean, it's just more talking about the demise of the Conservative Party, but I'm not even going to give them the time. That's good. No, I don't want to play it because it's democracy must be respected. The voter must mean something. Somebody has to show up. Somebody has to show up and says the voter means something. Because that is, if it is a truly democratic country, the voter is paramount. The voter is paramount. Can't say that enough. But they hide transparency, they hide the money, they don't. We're going to show you so much stuff in the next little while here of all the fraud, waste, abuse, and their refusal to be held accountable. And some people saying that we're like, we're making stuff up or whatever, like we're a gossip channel. Like, we're just showing you the truth. Like, we're just showing it to you. Like, I mean, it's just written there too, like that the vote, that's the one thing you get. That's really the only thing you get as a citizen is the vote, isn't it? Well, I don't know what else you get over government. You get a vote.
Oh, you're being silly, Jim. You can protest. We've seen examples, haven't we? You can go to Ottawa. You could even take a vehicle or something so you can get people's attention.
Big truck.
Yeah, and you can park there in Ottawa and you can protest and say, "My Lord, Your Majesty, I don't think I'm getting a fair deal." You can do that too, can't you? That's built into our system, the right to protest. I don't think the cavalry would have anything to say about that. So
that was yesterday, the cavalry, the 4th year anniversary of the cavalry showing up, freezing bank accounts, trampling on people. And meanwhile, nobody's answered to it. Nobody has answered to it. We will not get answers to all these things, including the release of those vaccine files being sealed for 15 years until this government is changed out. Somebody needs to come in there. And hopefully it isn't Ian and I that we have to wait that long. But again, you can help us get a bigger audience so we can get more people watching this. And I talk to lots of people now that say they watch this show all the time. So that's great. We just need to get it out to more people. People need to be woken up to the truth. And here's one of the things that governments hide behind. It's not just the Liberals. Tons of governments hide, NDP, different governments, even Conservatives have done this. Running 10-year plans are just meaningless plans. I mean, it's just when, we heard these plans. Oh, by 2050, we're going to have this. I mean, you might as well say we have no intention of doing anything. So we put this long timeline out there so that we can just hide behind it. I mean, that's obvious, right? Whenever somebody says this is what we're going to do, why don't you tell us what you're going to do in your term? That's what you should speak to. What are you going to get done in 4 years? Not what you're going to get done if we're elected for the next 40 years. It's just ridiculous.
But it's also, it falls on deaf ears, or that's not quite the right idiom. It's particularly meaningless when there are lots of things that he could have done in, what was it, January when he first became Prime Minister, or March? In March, wasn't it? In March, there are things that he could have done. March the 14th.
Yeah.
And they still haven't been done. So you talk about 10 years. How are we supposed to believe you that you're committed to all this change when there is literally a gigantic pile of documents, theoretically, on your desk, and you could sign them all and change hundreds of things that would improve the economy and improve people's lives, but that's not happening.
You could free the media right now. You could free the media right now with canceling the Online News Act. Even Stephen Fuhr, the local MP, said it needs to be repealed. Still not done. You haven't even approved. It hasn't got royal assent on the GST break on first-time home buyers. It has not been done yet. So it's actually paralyzed the new home market. Thank you, Diane. A big thank you to Diane. Diane, a regular here as well. Super thank you to Diane. Diana, sorry. Diana from Wonder Woman. What was her last name in Wonder Woman? Diana.
I was never a fan. Let's have a look. I'll Google it for you.
The new movie, Wonder Woman.
Diana Prince.
There you go. We're going to talk about a prince later. If you could tell us what the price of gas is, I noticed as I was driving in this morning, it went from $1.09 to $1.37. What happened? Like we got this 1 day window. Like that's what I don't like about gas cars. Like it's like a lottery. 1 day $1.08, next day $1.37, next day $1.06, next day $1.60. What is literally going on there?
Because of Iran, I believe. I think that's the reason. But I think your complaint is totally justified though, because it's like as soon as something goes on in Iran, it's straight away let's get the prices up. But if something happens for a price to come dramatically down,
take forever.
They seem to take their time on that. They're like, what? Price decrease? I haven't heard anything about that, man.
We got Tiff Macklin to use that for an example when he shot the prices or the interest rates up in unprecedented fashion. 19-fold increase, Tiff. When you told Canadians you wouldn't do it, 19-fold increase, elevator up, and this slow, painful staircase on the way down. Tiff. How do you still have your job? And Heidi, thank you, Heidi, for the contribution as well.
Heidi.
And thank you for the kudos as well. And thank you, Diana, for the love. We appreciate it. And $1.92 premium for the Lexus for David there. Yeah, tell us what your price of gas is when you drove in this morning and where you're calling from. We got John Jacobs there from Indiana. We looked at our stats, and then this is under. Just want to let people know who's watching this. Over 2.2 million now in the last 30 days and growing. So this is getting out to a larger and larger audience all the time. We got to beat CBC and CTV. We got to get a bigger voice than them so we can make a difference. We got to show them what journalism looks like and what truth looks like, because they need to start telling instead of cackling after they go off and saying they're just spewing nonsense. And people say we spread misinformation. They literally showed you that they're doing it, and it's all made up. She basically told you that. Anyway.
Good old Indiana. I've never been there, but I would like to visit one day. By the way, I've done a little bit more research and sort of jogged my memory a bit more. I mentioned Douglas Carswell in the UK who defected, resigned, won the by-election. There was also another chap who did the exact same thing. His name is Mark Reckless, which is a very funny name. Quite a reckless move. But anyway, just to point it out, it's the same political system that we have here. And there's an example from 12 years ago, which isn't really very long ago, 2014, where 2 people did it. 2 MPs did it.
Well, you know, Doug's calling us.
All by-election.
I don't know, Doug Stewart's calling us rage-baiting morons, or is he talking about himself? I'm not sure what's going on. What maybe explain yourself, Doug. You were here yesterday, and if we're the morons, are we the rage-baiting morons, or who's the morons? I'm not sure.
It's Doug Ford. That's Doug Ford's not very clever pseudonym. Doug Stewart.
Oh, have another Coke, Doug. And I was going to say 73% of our audience is from Canada. And I think 20 from the United States of America, and then other various places. Lots of displaced Canadians, I imagine. And then the audience is and then the audience is mostly Ontario, BC, and Alberta. And then a few people from the territories. And I think everybody from the territories is watching, because there wasn't that many, but there's not that many people in the territories.
So. We've got mezzanine market penetration in the territories.
So welcome everybody from the Northwest Territories. And welcome to the people that come here to say nasty things. Why do you got to be like that? Anyway. But hey, here is the head of Canada's immigration here. Lena Diab, listen to her. Listen to this. This is going to shock you.
Are creating a new category for skilled military recruits to attract highly skilled foreign military applicants. Eligible recruits with a job offer from the Canadian Armed Forces, including doctors, nurses, pilots, can be invited to apply for permanent residence. They will be subject to the same security and all military requirements. This new category will support our government's commitment to strengthen our armed forces, to defend our sovereignty, and to keep Canadians safe. This category and other priority categories supports Canada's defense industrial strategy, which Prime Minister Carney announced yesterday, by adding a range of workers critical to support our sovereignty and security.
So Canada now is inviting mercenaries?
It's got a long history of working out really well, that, hasn't it? As I'm sure the students of the Roman Empire in the chat will be aware. The Romans did this, and what happened? It didn't work out well, put it that way. Suffice to say. But I would also say, look, we talked about Mackenzie King just now in the context of conscription. This country has a history of struggling very much with getting its men its own citizens to fight wars. And I know those wars were like not in Canada, they were elsewhere, all the rest of it. That was the argument at the time as well. But they were considered to be wars of like survival. Both of those, the First World War and the Second World War, that's kind of how they were sold to the Canadian people. And there was a lot of panic about them. And still, look what happened when an attempt was made to get enough men to go and fight. And those are Canadians. Those were, you know, red-blooded Canadian males. And that's what happened. So you think bringing in somebody from, I don't know, Lebanon, which is the country that this woman has an affiliation with. Do you think we can bring people in from Lebanon, which I've plugged from the top of my head, and then tell them to go and die for us? Please go and kill and die for this country that you've just visited. Good idea. Let's see if it works, eh?
Absolutely crazy. Underfunded, underpaid, under-equipped, and now underappreciated that we don't, like, I mean, why not incentivize? I mean, the American military is now getting record recruitment. I wonder why. We showed you the story yesterday where the Canadian military had to hitch rides. They don't even have air transport, boats. Like, we paid millions of dollars out to hitch rides. That's what they think of the military in Canada. So are these guys going to bring their own guns? So it's like, we're going to bring mercenaries in and they bring their own bombs and stuff like that too? Or are we going to, if there's a peace plan in Gaza, are we going to get all the people that love fighting from Gaza to come fight for us? What is literally going on? What is literally going on? Like, who comes up with these dumb ideas?
I mean, it's kind of, it's worked a little bit in some contexts, hasn't it? Let's give this our full and fair attention. Like the Americans, for example, they've got a history of bringing in people from various parts of like Latin America and stuff, and making American soldiers out of them. But yeah, I don't know. I suppose that would be the defense, wouldn't it? That's what they would say.
Well, the American military machine,
I know,
but just the American military machine is a completely different machine than Canada. I mean, it is.
And I think,
like, you're indoctrinated into that machine, like you are part of the machine.
yeah, and I don't know if that includes pilots as well, which is quite a job of great responsibility, isn't it? Flying an exceedingly expensive piece of equipment and all the rest of it. Like, I don't actually know that much about foreigners in the US military, but I do know that it's happened, and the US military seems to be okay. But it's such a bigger operation. I think that is the point, isn't it? The US military is so gigantic, whereas the Canadian military is so tiny that you bring in foreigners, they are going to be proportionally more of the, they're going to compose more of the staff, aren't they? Just right away, because there's so few people in there. So that's a question. But also, I was just going to say, I know personally a British fella who works in the Canadian military now, and that's been going on a while. But that's Britain, isn't it? Like, Britain and Canada, we have a laugh about it, but they're very similar countries who are joined by a head of state and all the rest of it. And, you know, the British helped create Canada, did create it, you might say. So that's a bit different if it's a British person in your army. But if it's somebody from, for example, like I said, again, Lebanon, which is where this woman is from, I don't know. I mean, I know some Lebanese people, they're great chaps, but it's not quite the same. I don't know.
We have never invested in our military. And, you know, it was one of the jobs I wanted as a youth. I went to a career day when I was in grade 10. And I said I wanted to be a pilot. And the military person at the time told me, because I had the highest grades in my class, in my school, actually. And they told me that they asked me if my dad was somebody of note, like that had political connections. And I said no, like we were poor, dirt poor. And then asked me if I had anybody in my family that was a high-ranking officer. I said no. And he said, you know what, kid, no. You'll never be a pilot in Canada. There's very few pilots, and we don't take just anybody. You have to be connected. I was told that as a child. That's how they treated you.
Usually they don't tell you that.
And that's how we've treated our military and our people all along. It's just, you know, Stephen Fuhrer, one of the few that got to fly jets, and now he's too good to even do an interview because he doesn't believe in democracy, I guess. I don't know, Stephen. You know who I am. Thank you to Evica Kennedy. What's that?
He's a high flyer.
High flyer, all right. But this lady here, oh my. Then she said her job's so easy now. This is the next one here. The number of landed immigrants in Canada last year totaled 393,500. That's from Lena herself. And she said that yesterday. The figure is almost a quarter less than the 500,000 quota set in 2024. And she said adjustments needed to happen. I think generally speaking, everybody is pleased with and proud of those adjustments. The quota is to fall to 385,000 this year, but they also have these other little leaks that they got in there, the different ways to classify people. The number of temporary permits for migrant workers and foreign students peaked at 1.8 million in 2023. And will be cut to 385,000 this year. We had colleges living off of temporary students, foreign students. Conestoga comes to mind. That president there made over $600,000 a year with 86%, I believe, foreign students. A whole industry was created. Meanwhile, healthcare was like bankrupted, like not bankrupted, but you couldn't get health. You couldn't get access. Youth unemployment in double digits, inflation. You, the taxpayer, paid for this runaway, absolute runaway immigration. And here's a comparison of what Canada did compared to some of the other countries. Look at this chart here from 2000 to 2024. Look at that increase. Canada, next chart there. That's Canada at the bottom. 34% increase. 34%.
We got all these people and we're still being humiliated at the Winter Olympics. We brought in more people than the entire population of Austria. And more than the Italians brought in, 5 times more than the Italians brought in. But we can't compete. What's going on? We obviously didn't bring in enough skiers.
Here's Jason Kenney. I don't know what Jason Kenney's up to these days. Jason Kenney is kind of like Christy Clark these days. He seems to be making more noise than ever. But listen to him when he talks about immigration here. We should try to get Jason on the show. Probably only likes going on CBC though. But listen here on Jason Kenney.
I can tell you from inside sources that under political pressure, the Immigration Refugee Board, which makes these decisions, has begun years ago virtually rubber stamping all claims from certain countries of origin.
And another ex-government official says tens of thousands of refugees accepted into Canada without being asked a single question. And that's the former director of Policy, Immigration, Refugees, and Canadian Citizenship. The Ottawa Department responsible for migration said they didn't ask a single question. That's James Joseph, writing in the Globe and Mail newspaper, said that under the pressure to clear backlog, the board ended up boosting its approval rate to 80%. Negative decisions rejecting asylum claims consume time and resources because they must be carefully written in anticipation of appeal. So you remember that guy in the old sitcom there? He would just like stamp the papers, just like that, eh? Just like, keep going. Yeah, good. You're good.
Isn't it so sad though to contemplate how the system is set up to just make the worst possible decisions, really, isn't it? So in this case, saying no is too much work because there'll be an appeal and it's harder to write that. The same phenomenon, by the way, in Britain.
Netflix.
Many years now. Yeah. You've got to justify it, then there's an appeal, and I think you can appeal the appeal and all kinds of things like that. So it becomes easier to say yes. And yet, shift your vision, your mind's eye, to something else like, I don't know, natural resources and building things. Whereas when it comes to that, saying yes is harder, isn't it, than saying no? So they always say no. The incentive structure is set up to say no to building things like, I don't know, pipelines or whatever, or something that generates electricity. But it's also set up to say yes to random foreigners who've sent letters in saying, oh yeah, I'm being beat up in my country or something like that. Lol, please can I be a Canadian? And it's like, yes, sir. this is the thing. The system, this is what people mean when they say it's like a systemic problem. It's a systemic crisis in Canadian governance.
Canada has become a nation of rent seeker. You got financial industries topping our top 10 companies. Top 10 companies in Canada, majority of them are banks. Majority of them are the big 6 banks. And it is all about rent seekers here. Like, so the financialized, and Carney loves it. Canada's kind of like, you know, for most of the world, it's like a hotel for the globalist. Canada can be used as a hotel. You can come here, you can rent a place, get some free healthcare. Don't build anything, though. Don't build anything.
Well, we were looking at Lena Diab earlier. The "My Job's Easy," says Minister. That story from Blacklocks. That story is based on a press release or a press conference, and she sent the press release to us as well, obviously, because we're on the list. And it's quite interesting. You scroll down. They've put in the press release this little factoid. Immigration accounts for almost 100% of Canada's labour force growth, helping to address shortages in key sectors. I'm sorry, I assume this was written by a kid that doesn't know how to be subtle, but that's kind of like, that's almost like a secret in Canada. It's not just labour force growth. It's not just that they need it. If you want jobs filled, you need immigrants. It's also, if you want Canadians, you know, if you want people, let's say, in Canada, it has to be foreigners, because the Canadian people have stopped having children. They've stopped replacing themselves. Therefore, without immigration, the population declines. And from a government perspective and a business perspective, that's the worst possible thing that could happen. And hence, this binge on immigration every year. So, interesting. And that's so rarely is that mentioned. Like, sometimes you'll see stories where they'll say, like, you know, talk about population growth, and they'll say, population growth in recent years has mostly come from immigration. No, it's entirely come from immigration. It's basically 100%.
I think Daniel Smith needs to call Elon Musk and ask for the Boring Company to drill a tunnel underneath British Columbia and get to the coastline. By the time the Boring Company will probably get that done before they even get an approval to build a pipeline to the West Coast. That's sadly.
I'm sure that would affect the unceded underground territory of certain people.
Nobody will know.
10 miles underground, maybe. I'm sure there'll still be a legal case.
Speaking of immigration and speaking of Danielle Smith, she has something to say about immigration right here. She seems to spit common sense and then for that, the media loves to go after her. Not us, though. Let's listen to Danielle Smith.
Question. Your chief of staff this morning, in responding to a tweet about immigration levels in Canada, wrote, "Watch the address of Premier Danielle Smith to Albertans tomorrow. This absolute insanity needs to stop. It will." That more than implies that tomorrow you're going to be announcing some changes to immigration in Alberta. What are your plans in that regard?
Well, we are going to be delivering the address at 6:45 tomorrow evening. There's a number of things that we're going to address, but I think it's no secret that a part of our budget challenges, number one, is on the revenue side, that we've seen a decline in our revenues as a result of WTI trending below $60 for most of the year when we need $74. But at the same time, our expenses have been growing faster than our revenue growth. And part of that is we've had the fastest growing population in Canada, adding 600,000 new people in the last 4 years alone. I think there's only one country in the world that has exceeded the level of population growth that Canada has had. And so this clearly needs to change. This is not sustainable. So I'll have more to say about that in the address, and then we'll begin the conversation with Albertans about what needs to happen next.
That's good.
My second question is also immigration and Twitter related. A high-ranking staffer of yours, Bruce McAllister, tweeted this morning also about immigration, saying the people orchestrating this, he's talking about the high levels, the people orchestrating this reckless, unsustainable mass immigration into Canada fill me with profound disgust. To deliberately engineer and champion such explosive, unmanageable population growth in your own nation, ? That's the height of civic irresponsibility. Then he went on later to say, does their contempt for Canada's core values and traditions drive them to flood our borders with millions from societies not built on the same foundations that have made us thrive? Why import from nations with failed systems when our Judeo-Christian heritage and principles have worked so well here? I called Mr. McAllister this morning to ask for clarification. He hung up on me, so I'm asking you. My question is, do those views of Mr. McAllister about countries of origin and Judeo-Christian values represent the views of you, the Premier's office, and the United Conservative Party?
Well, I can tell you that Western society is based on the Socratic Judeo-Christian tradition. If you go back and look about why it is we have the society we do, there's no question that there are some foundational influences to that. However, Alberta was also created since 1905 based on the immense diaspora communities that come here. And one of the reasons why Alberta works so well historically is because when people arrive, they have a good paying job, have time to determine whether this is one where they want to put down roots and have a family. That is the pace that I think works not only for the newcomer to understand the new society they're moving to, but also to ensure that we've got the supports so that they have access to the healthcare and education and other social supports they need. That system broke in the last 4 years.
Media in Canada have become activists. It's just, like they're on witch hunts all the time. They're just literally on witch hunts. Like, again, compare that to Mark Carney's questioning. Mark Carney could literally do a heinous crime on television and they would explain it away as something that is necessary for Canada. Daniel Smith could literally cure cancer and it would be, they would be talking about how the doctors in Canada are not going to be unemployed because Daniel Smith took their work away.
Doctors' union unhappy about this development, and then they would non-stop interview the union. Yeah, my only comment there is, I find it so interesting. I get the sense that these people who worry about these things, like that reporter there, that they've never traveled, or if they have traveled, they've not opened their eyes. They've not actually spoken to local people. Because I can tell you, someone that's traveled a wee bit in my life, it's really only a small handful of countries on this planet that act like that consider it a really bad, evil thing to want immigrants that come to your country to be like you, to share your values. That is so ubiquitous and so that is just a ridiculous thing to say in most countries in the world, because they just say, yeah, obviously, what do you want about? You go anywhere, and anyone that's been following Japanese politics in the last
I imagine that reporter asking that question of the new Japanese prime minister.
Yeah, they would just be like, what are you talking about?
I think they would say you leave. They would say you leave now.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the Western disease, isn't it? And it's particularly like the Anglo-Saxon disease, I think a lot of people would say. In Europe, they would, like Eastern Europe, maybe even France, but that's a different story.
They're not reporters, they are activists. Here's, thank you, Kanata. Is that where you're from, Kanata? Because I have a friend in Canada. Do you used to live in Canada, or do you still live in Canada?
Yeah, I'm all about Canada. Or Kanata, as I say. That makes people laugh when I say it.
Canada.
No.
Oh my. Unbelievable. Daniel Smith.
People are going on about something else here. I mean, I don't know how much I could be bothered to go into it, but they're objecting to Judeo-Christian, and she even said Socratic Judeo-Christian is what that's what Danielle Smith said there, which is interesting. More Aristotelian, I think, than Socratic, but whatever, Danielle. Yeah, about that, it's superfluous, isn't it? It's tautologous, because Christianity is a breakaway religion. It's a splinter from Judaism, or kind of predates Judaism as we know it, rabbinic Judaism. So it's unnecessary to say it anyway. It's built. You can just say Christian. It's built into that word. Is this the Old Testament, the Pentateuch, is part of Christian belief. It's just, I'm not sure when that even came about, but I think it's people that don't want to say the word Christian because they feel uncomfortable about it. So they're just like Judeo-Christian, even though it doesn't really make sense.
We say the word Christian. I don't know.
Well, that's because I think, we've read we've talked about, I've read all my George Orwell, and we talk about George Orwell a lot. And if you read George Orwell, one thing you should come away with is that language matters, and you should try and speak as precisely as possible. If you're interested in telling the truth, you should really think about what you say and speak with precision. And it's not precise to say Judeo-Christian. That's just completely stupid confection.
There's one thing I do agree with. I agree with what Jamil Javani says here. I think we'll just wait till he finishes what he said. But there's one piece here I completely agree with. Listen in on Jamil here.
Sometimes I feel like my job in Ottawa is to have a front row seat to observe the destruction of my country, which is very infuriating at times. The reality is that, because the Liberals have been in power for so long, they have to own the status quo, but they cannot argue to the Canadian people that the status quo is good. They cannot convince the average person in our country that their life is better off now than it was a decade ago. And so how do they balance that? Well, they just pretend they're not responsible for anything. Not a single decision of the last decade do they apologize for or take ownership of. And they treat us like we have the memory of a goldfish, where they can go from saying the carbon tax is essential to stop the melting of our planet to then going, well, we don't need the carbon tax anymore, and how dare you even bring it up? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a weird way of doing politics, but it's the way they do it, and thus far it has worked for them.
I mean, I had a sleepless night, after watching, Jean Leroux do that. And it's not about crossing over to the Liberals. It's about the respect of the voter. Because if we don't have that, if we don't have the respect of the vote, we fail as a democracy. We fail as a democracy if we don't have the respect of the vote and the voter. That is the biggest thing. And it's not once, like this weird thing. It's 4 examples in a year. 4 examples in a year. D'Entremont, Ma, Jean Leroux, and Terrebonne. All of those are examples where the vote not being respected. Every one of those is a disrespect of the vote. And every time you have something that happens more than once, it's a pattern. It's a pattern. You have to look at it then as a pattern. 4 times in a year. It's a pattern. You can't say it's a one-off. And Rosie Barton said it's all made up anyway. Ha 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 ha. Sausage roll for everybody.
Jesus, the bucket.
Let's have the sausage roll. Look at that. The gold. Which one do you want? Which one do you want? Roman Emperor?
Yeah, I'll take the golden one. The one sitting on the little bit of cress or whatever that is there. I'll take that one.
Parsley?
Parsley, yeah, whatever. Jamil, though, I would say, Jamil Javani, I do feel quite sorry for the fella. I must say I haven't followed his career particularly. I mean, I could well disagree with a lot of what he says and things and object to some of the other things that he's
Doug Ford
saying.
made that, man. Doug Ford takes responsibility.
No, from a hole in the ground. But I do feel pity. I feel sorry for him because he's unknowingly set off a sort of landmine, hasn't he? And he's the scapegoat. He is, we're talking about the Old Testament.
He's the lightning rod, yeah.
You're looking at it, bro. You're looking at the Old Testament. He is being scapegoated. Yeah. And it's, you can't help but feel a bit bad for him.
Welcome, Roma. Again, we're going to do, and welcome Barb from Montreal. Thank you. We're going to do a members only video tomorrow. So if you want to get in on that, become a member. And we're going to do lots of cool things. We're going to try and do, and we respect you. We will always report to you, the reader, viewer. That is the job of media, to hold power accountable, no matter who's in power. And we will not sell out for sausage rolls unless it's a massive $1.6 billion plate of sausage rolls. But CBC, the judge says it's A-OK to hide spending. Isn't that wild? The CBC is entitled to conceal internal details of corporate spending under the Access to Information Act. And that's from a federal judge. The ruling came on legal challenge by Canadian Taxpayers Federation how much CBC spends on advertising while executives pled financial hardship. You know that one they're running that ad right now, how, you know, they're in local communities doing reporting. I haven't seen it. They said, I find that disclosing requested records would cause prejudice to the CBC and impair its proper functioning. It's a state broadcaster. It's supposed to be transparent. It's our money. It's literally my money, your money, your money. And they don't want to share that, how they spend your money. $1.6 billion. That's what they get just from the government. Plus they do, you know, like sell some advertising. You know, they have over a $2 billion budget. And look what they deliver. Look at the delivery. Look what they deliver. It's all made up, right, Rosie? All made up. Look what they deliver to Canadians. Who do they answer to? And who's watching? I guess cost of viewership in the CBC skyrocketing because they lose viewers, but the costs keep ballooning. And what did Mark Carney said? He said they're the most important institution in Canada. They are to the Liberals because they're shield. They are the shield for the Liberal Party.
Did you see as well the line from the federal court judge, Guy Regimbold, who said, I find that disclosing the requested records would cause prejudice to the CBC and impair its proper functioning. Specifically, it could compromise CBC's competitive position in the markets. To which the obvious question is, at least obvious to me, why does it have a competitive position in the market?
It's not supposed to compete. Not supposed to
exactly.
Not supposed. That's part of their whole premise is they don't compete with media.
I mean,
exactly.
What do you say to that? And there's more along these lines where other companies would look at this data and, in the words of this judge, gain an unfair advantage in the marketplace. Should we talk about unfair advantages in the marketplace, Your Honor? Because I think that might apply to the CBC.
Literally, they have their foot on our throat, took away our traffic, took away our revenue, and filled the coffers of the CBC. Unfair advantage. Unfair advantage. Can we get in front of this judge? The network from 2020 outbreak of pandemic pleaded financial hardship in cutting programming and laying off 141 employees. At the same time, paying senior managers $14.9 million in bonuses, because you don't want a senior manager going without his bonus, and billing $1,000 a night for a 5-star Paris hotel for its $500,000 a year CEO. Man, if only she could add a $2,000 a night Paris hotel. This is what I mean. They don't care. They treat the bottom end of their rung. They lay off. The same goes with the CTV. They laid off 4,800 employees and said that it was all to do with the Online News Act. Meanwhile, they put their hand out for more money. And the same goes for Global. While they basically cut all their, they don't even have a studio here anymore. They cut most of their journalists across Canada. And the executives, you go look at their financial statements. They're public record. You can go look at their financial statements. The executive took millions of dollars in bonuses. The ones at the top don't suffer. It's the ones at the bottom. And these activist journalists think they're doing a good, why don't you look at what your bosses are doing? Why don't you look at what they're doing? Take a look before you attack people like Daniel Smith. Why don't you look at what your own organization is doing? Take a look in the cupboard, man. I mean, CBC shouldn't be able to hide any records. Absolutely atrocious.
Well, I've just seen another line here that I didn't read, and nor did you. This is often the case with Blacklogs. They hide lines sometimes because it's all just so extraordinary, and they hide the most remarkable lines. Another thing that the judge said, there is no evidence that the issue of CBC's aggregate advertising expenditure is of public importance at all. No evidence that how the CBC spends our money is of public importance. I just send in the nukes. Nuke me now.
Just listen to this, though. Listen, while they cut 141 employees, they did this to demonstrate they need more money. They did this. So they put some sacrificial lambs on the table and made the sacrifice, but they didn't sacrifice themselves. At the same time, paid senior managers almost $15 million in yearly bonuses. and Catherine Tate there dined out, living large, at $1,000 a night, 5-star Paris hotel. While she was, and don't forget, she made almost 500 grand a year, plus the bonuses, and some of those bonuses we're going to show you later are half their salary, plus the expenses. Look at the expenses. Like, you know, like we were talking $1 million a year for this person that basically said the CBC was not biased. I mean, you'd have to be a clown not to say that. You'd have to literally be blind, deaf, and stupid.
Catherine Tate then, in this testimony, said there's a clear effort on the part of members of this committee, Conservatives in other words, to vilify and discredit me and discredit the CBC. No, I think you discredited yourself.
They do a fine job all by themselves.
Every single day.
All by themselves. They do a fine job of doing, not acting in the best interests of Canada. I mean, show me when they act in the best interests of Canada. I can show you many examples where they do not act. Like right now, are they going to the voter and say, is this not a violation of a voter trust? Is the vote not the most important thing? If you had to think of an election, what's the most important thing in an election? When election time comes, what is the most important thing? Is there anything more important than the voter? Is there anything more important than the voter? I don't know.
That's what the whole thing's for.
Exactly. And then what do they focus on? How Mark Carney is going to get a majority. Not about the voter. That tells you everything you need to know. And we did this story yesterday, but I just want to highlight it again because it's so important. The typical public servant now answers to 7 managers. I think we missed that piece yesterday when we were doing this piece from Hollywood on Blacklock. 7 managers. There's room for delayering according to the Jason Jacques of the Parliamentary Budget Office. 7 managers. Again, just to reiterate, this is from yesterday. The average wage now for a full-time position in the federal government, and hopefully everybody here makes more than this, right? $143,271 per employee. And there's 440.
Even more per manager.
Yeah, more. The managers get more, of course. Way more. 447,859 of them last year. Yeah. And then since the comet hit Earth in 2015, or not Earth, it hit Canada. It avoided most of the world. It seemed to have just affected Canada. It's grown 31% from 342,000 to 448,000. Not too shabby, eh? And the average person there has 5 levels of executives and associate deputy ministers and 1 deputy minister. It leads to a situation where an employee can have 7 levels of management above them. The managers don't do anything, just go and they have meetings. They have meetings to have meetings. And I've worked with some of these corporations, and they say that's all they do all day long is meet. Meetings to have meetings. Your money while you stand in line. Well, you stand there waiting for the GST crumbs. They stand there waiting for their bonus checks. 90 to 95% of these employees got bonuses too. And the executives got, they make bank. We're going to show you some bank later here. Just hang in there. If you want to see it, if you want to get angry. I mean, the more you know, and if the media was doing its job, this should be, these stories don't get covered by the CBC. They do not get covered by the CBC. Why is that? Why is that?
Reflects poorly on our institution and therefore diminishes what is it again? Social cohesion. It does not contribute to social cohesion. So we're not gonna chat about that.
Yeah, I just went on the CBC's website. Nothing there. Mostly all about Olympics, right? Because keep you distracted. Because there's obviously there's some stuff there that doesn't look good for the Liberal Party right now. If you had a half a brain. And the Canada Revenue Agency is revising its scope of audits to target largest multinational corporations with offshore accounts. Anybody come to mind? The initiative follows internal complaints that auditors misspent time chasing smaller corporations. Yeah, because they're easy to prosecute because they don't have lawyers and stuff like that. International large businesses pose higher compliance risks due to materiality and complexity of their transactions, as well as potential for base erosion and profit shifting. I just wonder who that would be. The agency for some 20 years defined large businesses as those with gross revenue over 250 million or 2 consecutive years. Drawing on this definition, there are approximately 1,600 economic entity groups and over 2,500 legal entities that fall into this audit population. Mark Carney said he knows the loopholes and he was using them. He was using them for Brookfield, that has a Bahamas address, to avoid paying $6.5 billion in taxes that it should pay to Canada. That means you have to pay more because they like to give away the money, so you pay more.
Or have less.
What's that?
Or have less. Have worse services.
Less, yeah. Have less. Have less. Pay more. Have less. They're going to make these changes in 2027. Why don't we start today with Brookfield? Everybody knows where they are. They got an address, Bahamas Bike Shop. Even Barack Obama said that Bahamas is one of the biggest tax evasion schemes in the world. It's not like they didn't know where it was.
I mean, they've not. How long has this been? No, it's a fact of life since like what, the 60s or 70s? Like, how long has this been going on for now? It's you can't play it dumb on something like this, can you?
Yeah, and then the CBC ran cover for Brookfield. They said, oh, well, you know, sure, it dodges taxes. No big deal, because CPP invests in them, so it's all good. What? Just like, what? They're basically a shield and a cover. And here you go. This is the one. This is Sandra Kobina asking the CEO of the Canada Infrastructure Bank just to tell her the salary, or tell Canadians what he makes in salary. Listen to this evasion. He takes your money, your tax dollars, and listen, this is his answer to you, not to Sandra. This is his answer to you. Meanwhile, I don't think you're making what he makes. You ask yourself, he's taking your money and he will not answer to you. Let's listen in.
How much did you get compensated last year in the last fiscal year? Base salary and bonus.
Open and transparent, and it's published on the internet.
Just the number, if you can. It is a public number, public information. I have the number, but I'd like you to just share with us.
Compensation is set by our board every year. They benchmark against the public markets.
Corey, could you share with Canadians what your compensation is?
Thank you for the question. As said, my compensation is public. It's
Mr.
benchmarked
Corey,
every year by our board and set.
Mr.
And
Corey,
I agree, I work for taxpayers.
I'm sorry, I have to ask you, why are you refusing to share your compensation? It is taxpayers' money that contributes to your compensation. They deserve to know, so can you please share with them?
My compensation is a matter of public record, and I take my duty
Mr.
as a
Corey,
worker for taxpayers seriously.
your compensation is in the range of $553,000 and $651,000, and you are entitled to an incentive, a bonus, of 50% of your base. So you could be making around $1 million. Could you justify that? What metric justifies that level of compensation for someone who is working in the public sector?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. I am, as the questioner points out, as the member points out, I've worked in public service both at the provincial and federal level for about a dozen years. And
I'm asking about the compensation and how to justify it. As you know, we have an affordability crisis. I find it unjustifiable to have a compensation, for someone to have a compensation of close to $1 million.
Talking about justifying things, how can we justify having a system like that where people can just lie and avoid questions and just act like, you know, toddlers and get away with it? What's the point of having these committee hearings if they can't be compelled to answer a question? Like, seriously, what is the point? And I would be ready to listen if that chap, Mr. Corey there, said, oh, that was just politics. That was just like, that wasn't a serious question. Yeah, in many ways it wasn't, and she was being a bit silly. Nonetheless, you're right, being asked a question by a representative of the Canadian people in the House of Commons. Answer the bloody question. Is that not straightforward? Answer the bloody question.
They work for Canadians. Just answer the question. It should be just plain and simple. And it's too much. I mean, $1 million. This is the same bank that lent money to that was used to fund building of ferries in China. Canada Infrastructure Bank money used to fund that Mark Carney hasn't answered for yet. And one of the people here defending the Liberals, well, the Conservatives would be worse. That's not the right reply. This should not be acceptable for any party. Any party. This should not be acceptable. It needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed. There should be accountability and transparency. There shouldn't be 7 layers of management. There shouldn't be people in government. He worked 10 years, 12 years in government. He's making $1 million a year. That's absolutely atrocious. People in private enterprise don't make that much money. So no, absolutely not. They need somebody in there that is willing to become unpopular and just clean house, because these people are just, and you know why they vote Liberal? Is because they don't want to rock the boat, because the food is in the trough. Well, meanwhile, Canadians at record numbers stand in lineups at food banks and are waiting for crumbs for GST breaks. And I don't care, these Dougs and that come in here and say the Conservative would be worse. The record, they've had the wheel for 10 years. Take responsibility for what's gone on. Take responsibility. And it isn't they'd be worse, because I don't think anything could be worse than this. We could show you chart after chart after chart where Canada was doing really well until 2015. And then something weird happened in 2015.
Famous last words, aren't they? I don't think anything could be worse than this, said Parisians in 1789, or Russian Muscovites in 1917. Unfortunately, lads, yeah, it can be a lot worse.
Yeah, anyway, food professor says we've been saying it, there is ways to provide immediate relief without throwing crumbs out to appeal to just for votes. Cut the GST on all food. Cut the GST on all food. Kill the industrial carbon tax. Kill the clean fuel regulations. And kill the food packaging tax. All those things would immediately drop inflation. Immediately drop food inflation. Those are things that could happen with the stroke of a pen. Just like that. They've done it before. They did the GST holiday, didn't they? Taco and tinsel thing. They did it. Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau did it. They did it just like that. Do it again. Make it permanent. Do it. Do it. Get rid of the industrial carbon tax. Most of the world is going that way. Do it. Simple stuff. But they
what a terrible indictment that you have.
They won't and they don't.
That you have this professor making this claim. The media try to downplay the inflation numbers to make it seem less of a thing, less of an issue.
Yeah, they run all kinds of they run cover.
If you don't even admit that one exists,
they run cover.
That's how people's lives spiral, isn't it? They have a problem and they won't admit that they have one.
One of the things that's
happening now on a macro scale.
And even Doug would agree with this. If the Conservatives ever get power, we need a powerful media. We need a powerful media, and we need it now that holds all power accountable. Because this wouldn't have happened if we had media that was focused on what they're supposed to do and holding power accountable. That is the job of media. And you can help us by sharing this far and wide and helping other independent media outlets as well, helping them. Close to 100 have failed since the Online News Act, since the government has willingly put the boot to the throat of independent media while filling the coffers of the CBC. That is intentional. Weaken media, weaken transparency, weaken accountability, and loot Canada, as Sandy says. Here's a chart. Take a look at it. Explain it. Explain it to me like I'm stupid.
America got more land. Well, I mean, America they do have better transport networks and they do have more agricultural land. But
well, here's some good news. I don't want to spend too much time on it.
I mean, it is still a choice. It is still based on decision. Yeah.
That was a rhetorical question. That was for the people in the audience more so. But listen, I was just in Tokyo, and guess what? And they talk about the sandwich, and guess what? It's coming to Canada. Yay! Japan's iconic tamago sando, the egg salad sandwich. 7-Elevens are completely different in Japan. Like they're just the aisles are just full of food, ready to go food. And I tried the egg salad sandwich because my daughter, who's in her 30s there, told me that it is like the thing. 7-Elevens are the hot thing. And
Canadian company try to buy 7-Eleven, didn't they? So we could have had all these goodies.
Couche-tard.
Yeah, indeed. But 7-Eleven in Thailand, I can remember quite well. I'm pretty sure it was a 7-Eleven. One of my mates got an octopus on a stick from 7-Eleven. So, you know, you can get all sorts, really.
Yeah, I tried the sandwich. Solid 5 out of 10 for me. Not a big. It's kind of mushy, soft, mushy, and gushy. I like my egg salad sandwich to have a little bit of bite with green onion and stuff like that, and have a little bit of texture. My mom used to take me to bingo when I was younger. I only went because of the egg salad sandwiches in Midway, BC. Remember when somebody trolled us and said we're just small town hacks? We're proud of being small town hacks. Guess what? April 1, fools. Tax going up. Taxes in Canada, 46% of the price of your beer. Next slide there. Next one. And one day we're going to have more money and we're going to have our, couple people running the board back there. But 46%. In the US, it's 17%. The European, 30%. And it keeps going up. It just set every April 1. I wonder why they picked that Fool's Day, just because they're just like, it's like almost like they did it on that day on purpose, just to let you know what a fool you are. Hey?
It's terrible. I mean, it's because it's considered a sin, isn't it? It's considered to be a naughty thing to do.
Well, no, it's because
they pile the taxes on it. But it's part of many people's lives.
They look for things to tax where they can make money, and this is one they can easily justify. Just like, Brenda Bailey, when they raided the cupboard the other day, and we're going to talk about it in a little bit here. They look for things that cause the least amount of pain where they can back it up. It's just another way to tax things. The whole climate change thing was a way to tax something everybody needs, energy. It's one of the biggest tax schemes going. And now there's...
Well, it was a way to create a sin so that you could have sin taxes. That's another way to put it. It was a way to make just everyday activities like driving somewhere, to make that into a kind of sin that you should feel bad about. And when that's done, when that's achieved, you won't be able to complain when massive taxes are slapped on it.
Talking about climate change, Tim Hodgson, he was at the IEA, International Energy thing, and so was Chris Wright there from America. Kind of different messages. I'm going to play a little bit here from Tim as he slouches back there in his seat there, and he's got like low energy, and he quotes scripture. Let's listen in. Just a little bit, though. What's that? Well, I'll tell you.
One of the, I think one of the previous panelists used the word smorgasbord. I think we don't have the luxury of having religion on a particular technology when you have a country that's the second largest landmass in the world, where you have 80% of our country incredibly urbanized, but 20% of our country, the average commute when you drive is an hour and a half. Telling someone when it's 30 below 0 centigrade and you're driving 3 hours a day that you can only use an electric vehicle doesn't work, and that creates political discourse that isn't helpful to getting to transition. I think what we have to say to people, and what we're doing in Canada, is saying we recognize there are differences. There's a difference between an urban community and a rural community. There's a difference between regions in our country that are incredibly rich in hydroelectricity and the prairie regions of our country, which are very flat. Hydro doesn't work there. So we're actually doing a smorgasbord and trying to be regionally aware and constructive. We have 13 different provinces and territories. Many of those provinces are the size of multiple European countries. So we do need to have a smorgasbord. We're not dictating thou shalt use wind, thou shalt use solar, thou shalt use SMRs. It's really designed, and then using those tools that I talked about, the tools for first
That's good enough, yeah.
of a kind risk.
Good, that one. Where was that sort of plain speaking in the Liberal Party for, I don't know, the last, how long? More than 10 years, probably. Like, they've just done a complete 180. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh no, EVs, you can't have EVs when it's minus 30 and you got to drive 3 hours to work. Like, that's stupid. We're the clever party. We're like the pragmatic party. We're going to do things that make sense. Talking about like, you can't force people to use solar and things like that. It's like, have you been living under a rock for the last 10 years? Do you know what party you're in? Have you get your wallet out and look at your little Liberal membership card just to remind yourself?
This is just more of the confusion, though. He goes here because, forget, I don't know if he followed Chris Wright or Chris Wright spoke before him, but, he's couching his words because we've heard him speak completely different. Listen here, this is Chris Wright from America.
Pushed off course, and for 5 years published energy scenarios going forward, none of which had any relevance to reality. They were all just based on climate ambitions, politics, local domestic politics, do whatever you want. If the European industrial powers want to continue to become former industrial powers, that's your choice. I don't think it's a great choice, but that is your choice. But that is politics. That's not relevant to the global energy system or to better people's lives. We need to have the IEA focused on energy data and bettering lives. Every report has a net zero 2050 case in it. There is a 0.0 chance of the world hitting net zero 2050, 0.0%. And the attempt to do it, so why I shouldn't worry about it, it's not going to happen. The attempt to do it has only had one impact. We've spent over $10 trillion to add 2.6% of global energy from wind, solar, batteries, and all the extra transmission infrastructure combined. And everywhere it's deployed in reasonable penetration rates, it's developed higher electricity prices. We've seen in the US, every state within the renewable portfolio standard, on average, 50% higher electricity prices than the other states that didn't adopt that. We don't want to move industries out of Europe. We don't want to make life more expensive and impoverish our people. We don't want to have 2 million people still dying because they don't have clean cooking fuel.
That's good. Again, completely different message. Completely different.
A bit more fulsome, wasn't it, than what we heard from Hodgson?
And energy, standing up, not slouched back in a chair.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, again, to the people, and that's the message that's being conveyed in a lot of their stuff. It's how it affects people. And we've seen the effects. Like, there's data that shows you what's happened to energy all over the place. You can attest to it. You lived it in the UK. You literally had to choose, and you weren't a pauper. You weren't like not working. You worked for the government. Your wife was in healthcare, and you had to choose when you turn your bloody heat on. These are facts. These are facts. And in Canada, people are, shockingly, if they have electricity bills, they're just crazy. And we're seeing it in a state in the United States right now where they voted for a Democrat, and they jacked up electricity prices. Some people are paying like $1,300 a month for electricity, and they're getting buyer's remorse now because they're just like, this is absolutely crazy. Electric heat is very expensive.
And you've got British Columbia there now, blessed. Talk about Moses and the Bible and whatnot. British Columbia, blessed by the Lord with its natural resources, and particularly as related to the generation of electricity and energy in general. They're now rationing energy and telling people that if you're going to mine Bitcoin, like you can't do it on our grid. You talk about data centers where like it has to be only a very small number of data centers can be accepted. Increasingly now buying energy from Alberta and the US because they don't generate enough of it in British Columbia. That is, you know, if you wonder how Britain got to the state that it is in now, and also Germany and other European countries, you can kind of see how it is possible, even if you inherit something as bounteous and glorious as British Columbia's energy mix. Even then, you can still, if you try really hard over a pretty long time, you can still smash it to pieces and introduce misery. Still possible.
I drive an EV, love it. But I also have worked in the north. I worked in Thompson and different places in high level. Truck country. Big truck country. And I did
But
drive.
also, like, they're constantly getting on at Alberta, aren't they? Because Alberta uses natural gas. It used to use coal. How amazing is that, by the way? Do they ever get any credit for that? They got off coal so quickly. But whatever. But because they use natural gas. And now finally we have Hodgson sort of alluding to that being just a fact of nature, a fact of geography. They don't have hydro in Alberta. Obviously, therefore, they're going to use fossil fuels. It's just, can you believe the hostility towards Alberta when they were being told by people in Quebec and BC, blessed with hydro, like, oh, you've got a dirty grid. It's just, it's things like that. I mean, this is just one in a million things, but it's things like that that illustrate why so many people in Alberta are just sick. They're sick to death of being told garbage by people that don't understand the world.
James says he has solar on his roof. So do I. James, I have solar on my roof, and it works for some people. It doesn't work for everybody, but it works. And there you go. High level is pretty north. Right, it's north. God's country. Only God wants to live there. And everybody else that got a flat tire and got stuck there. Nah, beautiful country. My brother still lives there. God's country. The Northern Lights there, absolutely incredible. Here's Brenda Bailey in a moment of truth when she says we actually have to, create wealth. We just can't tax everything. But what did she do? Found more things to tax. Let's listen to Brenda here.
Not distribute wealth if there isn't any wealth, right? And I remind my colleagues of that quite regularly. Another thing I want to, I try to frame up for people is when we look at the level of interest that we're carrying in the province right now, it's the fourth largest ministry. How is it in alignment for British Columbians that payments to, I'm going to say bankers in New York, but you pick it, is more important than the fifth largest ministry? And that will increase over time. We cannot allow that to continue. We cannot. We can do better things with our dollars. We must do better things with our dollars. And it's my job in this government to make sure that we do.
That's good. That's good. I've interviewed Brenda twice. We reached out for a third interview. I mean, she's right. But the sad thing is what she said, what she alludes to there, is she's having to convince her colleagues because a lot of her colleagues obviously push back on things that are beneath your feet here in British Columbia. All the natural wealth beneath our feet.
She's also, though, pointing out, coming across like a kind of fiscal hawk. She's talking about interest payments and debt and things like that.
Meanwhile, they cut nothing. And they raided the cupboards and added a whole bunch of PST taxes and a whole bunch of things. I mean, that the budget is getting no, I mean, is it something that she wanted to cut? Because she alluded to massive cuts 2 weeks ago. She said nobody's going to like her. She alluded to an austerity budget and then came out, no austerity budget, and basically raided the cupboard. So is she just powerless in that committee? Did they just nix everything? Sounds like it. Sounds like Brenda trying to do more, but can't get it done.
You said not an austerity budget. I mean, it is going to introduce austerity into some people's lives, isn't it? When they find that they suddenly don't have as much money as they planned to have after their expenses.
Austerity for everybody. Austerity for everybody, because they're going to take more money out of your pocket, but no cuts to the government, which is bloated. We showed you the bloating in the federal government. The same bloat has been going on here in British Columbia.
Astonishing, though. Like, we were talking to Gavin Dew about it. 180 billion, I believe, is their forecasted total debt by the end of this parliament. When there's the next election in BC. That's a lot of money for a sub-national jurisdiction. Because obviously, don't have to point this out probably, but let's do it anyway. British Columbia can't print money. It's not in a position of a national government where it can get itself out of massive debt piles. So it's got to be very, very shrewd about its debt. But it's not being shrewd, is it? And it makes it all the worse when you hear Brenda Bailey there saying how big of a deal this is, and she's saying the fourth highest expenditure, and that makes it higher than whatever that makes it more significant, more important than whatever's fifth. Yeah. So what are you going to do about it?
Peter points out that maybe you got to heat EVs with sausage rolls. No, I use the my EV to actually cook the sausage rolls on my way.
Yeah, that's what you want. Get a microwave in there.
Oh yeah, golden sausage rolls for everybody. Harman Bangu, we've interviewed him in the past as well. We're going to try and get him in again here. He's announced he's a late entry into the BC Conservative leadership race. He's announced his leadership, and Aaron Gunn, who everybody was kind of put in the next slide there. Aaron Gunn, who a lot of people were, he's an MP, Conservative MP. A lot of people were pushing for him to run, actually. I think he was leading the polls in one of Mario Canseco's polls. He was actually leading in the polls to be a favorite to lead the Conservatives here in British Columbia. And he said he had his mandate in front of him, and that was to be an MP and represent his constituents in Ottawa. But he just put a shout out there to Harman Bangu. I don't know if that's an endorsement yet or not, but we're going to get Renee Merrifield. We're going to interview once we get to know when they have to put up some of the money, because the leadership will be decided on May 30th here in British Columbia. So, I mean, some people are thinking David Eby throws down a writ there and runs an election prior to that so that he can have a little disarray. But I don't know. I don't think Eby wins us right now.
There's a poll that came out. I'm not sure when it was. Let me have a look. It's a Palace data, which is often frowned upon by the polling nerds. But let me have a look. Yeah, 5 points ahead. NDP 5 points ahead, and then the one before that was Leger 6 points ahead. So somehow the NDP is ahead, at least in the polls. But the thing is, and this is always the case, you always have to say this: people aren't thinking about an election right now. When an election is called, then they're thinking about an election. That's when they're going to decide who they're going to vote for.
Polls matter.
It's not really very enlightening, is it, doing it now?
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of like yeah.
It would be a massive, put it this way, it'd be a massive gamble for Eby if he did it, and I wouldn't. I think people as well, you talk about Canadians and fairness and whatnot, they might punish him for being obviously unfair, like trying to get them unawares. That would be seen as like not very sportsmanlike.
We had Jonathan Kay on, and he said that as bad as things were federally, BC looked like a poop show. And he said the NDP looks like look like they're in La La Land, and but the Conservatives in disarray. So we're going to see if the Conservatives can find their way here as they pick a new leader. And we talked about this lots. And as a member, you can let us know like who you want us to see interviewed. I know we've got a few recommendations to interview Dallas Brody. She's been on this one here. I'm going to let you lead this because you do the name of this First Nation band here, because I'm never going to get
Kamloops the Sick Whip. Good one. You got me. Just call it Kamloops First Nation. That's what the cool people
First Nation yesterday confirmed it has not attempted. This is what they were trying to block Holly Doan from getting this information. Holly Doan and the Blackhawks got this information. They're trying to seal the records of this as well. Has not attempted to exhume the purported graves of 215 children that Rosie Barton talked about too at the site of the Indian residential school, despite receiving $12.1 million in federal funding for the fieldwork. The admission comes ahead of the scheduled release of the access to information documents regarding the First Nations. And they were trying to block that. They were trying to seal those records. I think it was for 20 years or something, 15 to 20 years. They were trying to seal those records. Holly Doan from Blacklocks fought that. Anomalies that resemble burial mounds were found in some areas. Some areas were ruled out as burials, while others cannot be concretely ruled out. No attempt was made to exhume any alleged graves without first consenting the 38 other First Nations, studying 88 years of government records and sacramental records from the Roman Catholic Church, a process that would take several years. Each nation upholds its cultural and spiritual protocols on how ancestral remains must be treated. And that statement followed a January 13th order by the Federal Information Commissioner to release the hundreds of pages of records sealed by the Department of Crown Indigenous Relations regarding 2021 funding for the exhumation of remains. The department must respond to the request without delay, wrote the commissioner, who set a deadline. The First Nations group triggered national mourning in 2021 when it announced discovery of the 215 graves in the orchard using penetrating radar. The department attempted to seal all the records as confidential when Blacklocks requested the records. It also withheld emails between First Nations and a federal manager who repeatedly questioned the archaeological and forensic work that was underway. No parliamentary committee to date has investigated the Kamloops grave story. The Senate Indigenous People Committee in 2024 report, Missing Children, Missing Records, acknowledged the claims as many as 4,100 children died in residential schools were never corroborated. Kimberly Murray, a cabinet-appointed special inoculator, did I say that right? Interlocutor for missing children on Mark Grave, said in 2024 Senate committee testimony she accepted some Canadians were skeptical. It's one thing to say you don't believe there are burials, and she said, but that's your opinion. You can have freedom of speech to say that. But when you say there are no burials and the First Nations people or the Indians are lying because they want you to burn down churches or want to take away your cottages, that's inciting hate against Indigenous people. And that's from Murray, and that's the type of speech we need to stop. So the records will be provided at some point. We'll get this from Holly Doan at Blacklocks when we get this information.
Yeah, what a strange story this is. Talking about the world, like Canada and international news. This was so strange. And you also talk about Jonathan Kay. He was reporting on this a long time ago. Like, there's a comment here, isn't there, where the special interlocutor for missing children, unmarked graves, says, you can say you don't believe there are burials. That's your opinion, and you have freedom of speech to say that. People were saying that right at the start, and I don't know whether they really did have freedom of speech, or they weren't heeded. They didn't have freedom to be listened to. It was it was a moral panic, I think it's fair to say, putting the flag at half-mast and Justin Trudeau walking around like it was the Holocaust or something like that. Let's not forget all that. We can't just push that out of our minds. All that happened. And Jonathan Kay did report the facts and was skeptical, and he was, hounded for it. And then the international press, even I think the New York Times, like proper liberal bastion, they started to put the stories out way before any Canadian outlet did it. Way before. So I don't know. I don't think I quite concur with that. And this is another example where it's a double blow to Canada's reputation, because on the one side, on the sort of left progressive whatever it is side, they've just taken this as oh yeah, genocide. Okay. Lots of children buried in the ground, and they've just left it at that. Whereas people on the other side, on the right, or whatever you want to call, like MAGA people, Trump people, right-wing Europeans, and so on, they look at it and they just say, look how insane Canada is. They're pretending that this has happened, even though they don't have evidence, and nobody can even speak about it. And it's up to the New York bloody Times to write a story about it, because the media there is so bad and self-censored that they won't even publish it themselves. So it's another disaster for Canada's reputation, frankly, isn't it? And it, as is often the case, the actual story itself is just kind of forgotten, isn't it? Amid the argument. Who knows anything about this? The facts are so few, aren't they? We just know that there were disturbances. There are records of children dying there, aren't there? Or, deaths, because it coincided with various epidemics, didn't it? But it's just, even having this conversation is like, we're on thin ice here, we're on dangerous ground just by having this conversation. And that's the kind of unhealthy culture that predominates in Canada, and particularly, I have to say, particularly in British Columbia, where there is no interest in having hard conversations. Much easier just to shut up.
And another international story that makes Canada look bad, and this one in Fox News, and this one talking about MAID. Canada had made international news this week, with many foreign publications highlighting the country's controversial MAID and euthanasia program. It comes as 26-year-old Keanu Vafian, who was blind, suffered seasonal depression, and had diabetes, was killed by doctors in Vancouver in December, prompting his mother to allege that he was coached on how to deteriorate his body so he qualified for the procedure. We had John Carpe was supposed to be on today, but he's sick, so he didn't come on today. He's going to be on next week. He's booked in, I think, for February 25th. And last time he was on, we talked about MAID, and I believe it's in 2027 that it's already law. It's just going to happen if nothing is done about it, that people with mental illness can qualify for MAID in Canada.
This story is so sad. I advise people to read this story. She also, the mother there's a public post on Facebook. You just Google her name and go on Facebook. You'll see her post about it. It's heartbreaking. It's so sad because she talks about how she succeeded, because he'd wanted to do it for a long time, but she'd succeeded in preventing him on at least one occasion. She stopped him doing it, because they're from Toronto, I think, and she stopped it happening in Ontario. And then she said things were going really well. They were going to go and travel together and stuff like that. And they had great plans. Like, he was obviously a very sort of loved son, child. He was very precious to this woman. I get that impression. And then when things were going well, she thought anyway, and he'd said that things are going well, he'd secretly arranged to go to British Columbia to speak with this doctor in Vancouver who's quite famous for having, I think she's done the most MAID procedures of all doctors or something like that. He went to see her and then sent his mother a message a day before saying, I'm going to die tomorrow with MAID. So it's like, and then the mother was just, I mean, what the hell would you do in that situation? I feel so terrible for that woman. But she said that he has seasonal depression, and if anybody's ever seen anybody, the full name is seasonal affective disorder, I believe, which people call seasonal depression. If anybody's aware of that, familiar with that, it's a real phenomenon. And in the winter, with less light, I think it's something to do with light, people can become really sad and almost like different people to what they are in the summer. And she's saying he has that. He has seasonal depression, and he was going through a bad patch. And that's when he did this. But it just kind of highlights, there are so many safeguards, to use a trendy word, that just are not in place. We're talking about an irreversible procedure, obviously. We're talking about somebody dying here. And if there was a mistake made here, there is no appeal. There's no fixing this. He's gone. So, yeah, I mean, you can see why this is such a hot topic outside of Canada, I should say. People in Canada, just like with the grave sites, don't really talk about it. It's not worth it. Like, keep your head down. But in the United States, in Britain, this is in the Daily Mail, this is in Newsweek, this is in Fox, as we can see. They're all chatting about it. So the world is interested in what's happening here anyway.
Well, because they can't believe what's going on. Again, if you're interested, you can go watch that interview Ian and I did with John Carpe. It talks extensively about MAID and what's about to happen if Canadians don't raise their voice, that people with a mental illness like seasonal depression can have a non-reversible decision. And if you just
imagine, it was diabetes, by the way. That was the primary justification, was diabetes and neuropathy. Oh. I mean, obviously diabetes can get very serious, but It's not like it's not like he had a terminal cancer and he was going to die in a couple of weeks. Like that's usually when you're told about MAID, that's the example. Like, here's somebody with lung cancer. They are definitely going to die in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. They're in terrible pain. Let's put them out of their misery. That's not this. That's not this guy.
We got a few more things, and there's some good ones here. Again, if you're not a member, consider joining. We're going to do our first members video tomorrow. You can join us, and you can actually recommend people you would like us to interview, to bring on the show. We're going to try and bring on somebody. We had John Carpe scheduled for today, but he's sick, out with a cold. So last minute cancellation there. So Elon Musk there, Grokpedia, is now starting to outrank Wikipedia on some search results. So a lot of people, including one of the Wikipedia founders, saying Wikipedia has become biased. Imagine that, Wikipedia has become biased. So that's how Grokpedia started. There you go.
Wikipedia's bias is people who say like, oh, Wikipedia's not biased, that's very much the equivalent of saying, oh no, CBC's not biased then anyway. It's really that.
You live in that echo chamber. It delivers what you expect. It delivers what you expect. Somebody posted the hockey game before that.
It's factually wrong for ideological reasons, which is worse than bias. It's not just interpretation. They are factually wrong on many subjects because they're appeasing an ideology rather than, trying to seek the truth.
Maybe we'll make Wikipedia one day as Jim and Ian, the left of CBC news show.
Sausage roll heads.
Sausage roll heads. Sausage rolls for everybody. If we had a $1.6 billion, it would be sausage rolls for everybody. Everybody would get a sausage roll. Keir Starmer, they're going to follow in the Aussies' footsteps there, and they're going to ban social media for under 16s. And they're saying they could do that by this year. Elon Musk calls it madness. But it says, this is the part that makes it mad. 15-year-olds, you can't use social media, but 5-year-olds can choose their gender. Make it make sense.
That's not really true in England anymore. They had a big court case and a big inquiry where they, I'm talking about Canada not facing its problems. For all of England's problems or Britain's problems, they did face that one, and they acknowledged that it was not being handled well. The whole transgenderism issue was not being handled in a smart way, and they've completely changed all this. So that's actually wrong, Mr. Wide Awake Media. But I wouldn't be wrong, I guess, if you were looking at, I don't know, some other country like Canada, for example. Probably accurate.
U.S. to create a website that lets Europeans and others see banned content. The U.S. State Department creating a website, freedom.gov, to enable Europeans and others around the world to see content banned by their governments, according to a report by Reuters. I mean, there's so many ways around stuff like that. You can do VPNs and all kinds of stuff. I mean, this is just like...
It is. It has a VPN built into it somehow. I don't really understand, but that's what it's going to be.
Yeah, it's like squeezing toothpaste. These things are just ridiculous.
But we can take that back to the kids. Like, we're going to ban under 16s from social media. Good one. That's like saying, there's similar bans on people under 19 or 18 from having alcohol. That works, doesn't it, guys? That's 100% effective. You never see underage people drinking alcohol. Or in the US, you never see 20-year-olds in the US imbibing booze, do you? That's unheard of.
I did not start smoking and drinking in grade 6. Oh, wait, I did.
It was illegal, Jim. It was banned. The government said it was not allowed.
Yeah.
Just don't understand. I don't understand how that could happen.
The biggest fall from grace, from Prince to arrested this morning. Prince Andrew has been arrested by the British police. I mean, they haven't confirmed it. I mean, everybody's kind of reporting it, but...
it is confirmed. Fully confirmed.
Play this clip.
Police say they took the brother of King Charles into custody on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Officers reportedly arrived at the royal estate in eastern England earlier this morning to make the arrest of the former prince, who turns 66 years old today. Andrew is in custody, and investigators are carrying out searches at addresses in Berkshire and Norfolk. Police are releasing this statement in part without naming Andrew, by the way, saying, quote, Following a thorough assessment, we have now opened an investigation into this allegation of misconduct in public office, an offense that carries up to life in prison in the UK, by the way. We're still waiting more details of this breaking news, but this comes after Andrew was stripped of his royal title last October over ties to convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, and after Thames Valley Police said they were assessing a complaint over the alleged sharing of confidential material by the former prince with the late sex offender. The former prince has consistently denied any wrongdoing. Misconduct in public office refers to, quote, serious, willful abuse or neglect of powers relating to the role of public office. We shall see what comes of this. It's a developing story, as you guys know, so we'll keep our viewers updated.
There was Sarah Ferguson next to him there.
She's also in the poo-poo for some of her emails with Epstein, but not legal trouble, at least not yet.
That's the first big name arrest, I think. And I think there's a lot of talk on the internet there about who else should be arrested. And just amazing that this guy didn't find his way to like Qatar or something and hide in Abu Dhabi, or, you know what I mean, before it came. I'm sure some of the other billionaires right now are making plans before they end up in the Huskow. Making plans.
Well, he's like, he can be the fall guy, can't he, in a way? And a lot of the smarter ones will, you know, get out of the way, get out of the light.
Yeah.
But what he's been done for here, or arrested on suspicion of, he hasn't actually been charged, but the arrest concerns misconduct in public office, and that's because he shared documents with Epstein, like government documents. He sent in the Epstein files, you can see the emails where he sent UK government, because he used to be a trade envoy. That used to be his job. So he was granted access to certain like government documents. But that's also what happened to Peter Mandelson. Or that's also why Peter Mandelson is in trouble, let's say, because he also sent information, government information, to Jeffrey Epstein. If Andrew's been arrested, one would suspect Peter Mandelson would be arrested. So it's probably not the last arrest.
It's looking a lot more than just a sex ring. It was a trade for information, and the sex trafficking was likely a way to get people compromised so that they would trade information.
Shags for info.
Shags for info. There you go. There's the headline. And then here's Trump back then, 11 years ago, talking about it, you know, because everybody likes to, even a few people came on here accusing Trump of things. But here's a clip of him about Prince Andrew 11 years ago.
You raised the question of Jeffrey Epstein in your remarks about in the Q&A.
Well, I think he's got a problem. I mean,
what do you think the problem will be?
I don't know, but that island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew. He'll tell you about it.
A little younger there. Hair's a little more flowy.
His face fats before he started slurping the Ozempic or whatever it is he's on.
Definitely was a better eater back then. Rosier cheeks.
Yeah. Looks,
him and Rosie.
Looks
him and
more
Rosie.
like his Scottish heritage. More like his mother.
He looked, you know, maybe he was down at the sausage roll bar with some of the CBC crew.
If he didn't shout so loudly about being teetotal, I'd suspect that he'd had a few drams of whiskey. But
he's never drank, he never smoked, he says. So there you go.
Yeah, he looks like he looks like a habitual whiskey drinker. They end up getting that sort of red
rosé
blush. Yeah.
This one is a little long, but I think it's worth listening to because all the people, and especially including in Canada, the virtue signaling and the inability for action, this lady highlights it so well, and she's speaking at the UN. This is a message for the Nita Nans out there that speak, but their actions do not match. Listen in. This is worth listening.
I am supposed to talk only in 3 minutes, but in my country, in 24 hours, they killed 40,000 people in Iran. And I am here at the United Nations while the killers are walking here. I saw them with expensive Gucci bags. I saw them with expensive brands walking here at the United Nations. And this is the right time. UN Watch invited me. I'm very thankful, but I am going to talk the truth. United Nations is a sad joke. Ironically, I was invited by the US government recently to testify at the Security Council at the United Nations. And I said that the Secretary General of United Nations stand with dictators. Here, I'm going to ask you 3 steps that they took, and I will ask you whether they stand with dictators or with the victims. As Hilal mentioned, this should be the United Nations stand with the victims. 3 steps. First, the Secretary General of United Nations send a congratulation letter to Islamic Republic for the anniversary of this murderous regime. You tell me, do they stand with dictators or the victims? The victims are here, these 2 women. One of them lost her eye because the Revolutionary Guard shot her in her eye, Kosar. One of them carried a bullet on her arm, Sima. Do they stand with them? No, we have only 3 minutes. But the killers have everything here. Second step, Afsaneh Nadipur. How ironic. Now she's in charge. The woman who was in charge to oppress women in my country now is in charge to monitor women's rights globally. This is not an insult to Iranian. This is an insult to all of you living in democratic countries. This is a slap on your face because they are in charge to make sure that your human rights, your basic rights is being respected by your government. A representative from a murderous regime is in charge to take care of you all in Europe. And third, they invited Araghchi, thanks to the UN, thanks to the, can I show the signature? Thanks to, 300,000 signature, ordinary people, they canceled Araghchi, but instead, they invite this person, Gharib Abadi, who actually in the negotiation table with the United States of America in the West stole the pen. This is the character, low-class killers. And now, 7 days.
That's good.
7 days,
You can go watch the whole thing. She gets more than 3 minutes. I think she gets 6.5 minutes.
She's been on the scene a while. I've got a vague memory that I think I might have actually interviewed her many moons ago. But she's, she's always banging that drum. I suppose credit to her. But she's saying that all you, like talking about the Europeans and stuff, it's like this is an insult to you, and talking about the UN. But it's kind of, I mean, I think a lot of people get that because they don't want anything to do with organized, like the likes of the UN and what people call globalist institutions. They don't care about any of this stuff, and that's kind of like the Trump message as well. It's just like you do you, world. Like we're just so sick of even being here because it is an insult and it is ridiculous, isn't it, that Iran and like there's so many examples where these like ridiculous countries like Libya in the past and Iraq, Iran and whatnot, like Saddam's Iraq, like they're given these jobs in the UN where they're supposed to be like in charge of women's rights and things like that.
Just like
for God's sake, can you blame the Americans that want to just leave the UN altogether, or anyone really, Europeans as well? It's just like just bugger this. What is the point of this?
And Iran has one of the oldest cultures in the world. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but I'm sure you are a student of that history. Iran is, and it was a bustling economy just not too long ago. It wasn't the Shah of Iran when that was an American kind of venture when the Shah of Iran was chased out of Iran there?
No, that was Khomeini. Or Khomeini, I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce his name, but in the West we say Khomeini. That's the fellow that was in France. It was 1979, and then he flew into Iran, and there was the revolution. That was like a left-wing revolution more than anything anyway, but as usual, the extremist freaks hijacked it and succeeded in stealing a country. But the Shah was a friend of the West.
Yeah.
They did get rid of some, but they got rid of Mossadegh, who was like a socialist in 1953, I think. He was couped. That was the British and the Americans got rid of him because they thought that he was going to go full commie.
Well, Trump has had enough of the UN. He said so at the UN speech, and he started the Board of Peace. And today is the inaugural meeting of the Board of Peace. So I'm going to listen to like a couple seconds of the Board of Peace inaugural meeting here.
Very simple, peace. It's called the Board of Peace, and it's all about an easy word to say, but a hard word to produce, peace. But we're going to produce it. And we've been doing a really good job, and some of these leaders that are with us have helped me very much during just this first year. We have a first year like probably no other ever. Today is a tremendous honor to welcome you all to the United States Institute of Peace for the inaugural meeting of the Board of Peace.
That's good. And the confirmed members, I'm going to read this list. Albania, Argentina, Armenia, Azerbaijani, Bahrain, Belarus, Bulgaria, Egypt, Hungary, Indonesia, Israel, Jordan, Kazakhstan, Kosovo, Morocco, Pakistan, Paraguay, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, United Arab Emirates, Uzbekistan, Vietnam, and the ones not joining or declining, United Kingdom, not a member yet. France declined. Germany, not a member yet. Canada had its invitation withdrawn. Italy, observer only at this point. Sweden, Norway, Spain, Denmark, reported declines or non-participation. China and Russia invited but not confirmed yet. India, invited but not as undecided. There you go. So most of the Board of Peace are from the Middle East and Gulf states because this is what they're kind of working on. They're working on that Gaza, rebuilding of Gaza or right now. I think it was $1 billion to join up. Wasn't something like that? $1 billion?
That was, yeah. I mean, again, with Trump, you never know what is real, what's just him chatting, but yeah.
A little more Trumpian stuff here. It's Black History Month in the United States. And I know I watched some stuff on Bloomberg for Canada, and it's completely different than some of these were funny. So I thought I thought they were worth watching for people because there's a human element to. Everybody likes to hate him, but there's a human element to him too. Listen to this from Grandma.
This mission is
no, not that one. Nope. Next one. Nope.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. First of all, we are living under the administration of the greatest president in our lifetime. And we have the hottest...
I wanted this other one up there, but... Again, we don't have $1.6 billion to play with here, so... You played this one earlier? No. Is it the wrong one?
Felicia Cook, a lifelong Washingtonian who tragically lost her grandson to violence in 2017. Felicia, we're so sorry, and you are a spectacular person. If you could say a few words, please. Thank you very much. Help her up. We don't want any mistakes. Yes, you
One thing I like about him, he keeps it real, just like Grandma. I appreciate that because I can trust him. He tells exactly how he feels and what he wants. Thank God for this president. I am filled, my cup runneth over. Because he allowed his constituents, his people to come to my house to interview me, to talk about the murder of my grandson. It seemed like nobody cared. I'm an advocate for murder. I marched, I rallied, I pulled out other families in the District of Columbia that had murders and did not have answers. Ooh. We marched and we rallied, and nobody heard me, Democrats. get mad at me. Until this republic send his constituents, his people out there to interview me in my home. Have you ever heard of a thing? Then they invited me twice before Congress to testify for the beautiful bill that's going to change crime in the district. If you kill somebody, okay, you take a life, you do life. Just that simple. If you do a harsh crime, you do harsh crime. Just that simple. And if we need National Guard, and which we did years ago, he brought it on. I love him. I want to hear nothing you got to say about that racist stuff. And don't be looking at me in the news, hating on me because I'm standing up for somebody that deserves to be stand up for. Get out the man's back. Let him do his job. He's doing the right thing. Back up off.
That's good. That's good. And there were several more of those. We won't play more of those. But why I wanted to play that is, like, I think what resonates there is what resonates for Canadian people. They want something done about crime and disorder. They want something done. Interview so many like people in Kelowna and like MLAs. We want action on the crime and disorder. We want action. You know, when you know that one in Ontario where they go into the guy's house and he defends himself and he's the one that gets charged. What is literally going on in Canada? The guy gets charged after somebody breaks into his home and he defends himself. And this is what the lady is speaking about. Her son died in violence. And all Trump did was bring in the National Guard to bring order back to Washington. It was a cesspool. I mean, you don't have to look too far to see the stats. And look at the stats and how the difference is. We need a Trump in Canada. Trump has done some nasty things in Canada, said some nasty things. But it's like if you watch the Edmonton Oilers of the past, everybody hated Dave Semenko. The Oilers loved Dave Semenko. He protected their hockey team. We need somebody that works for Canada. That works for Canada. We need somebody that puts Canada first. And right now, I don't think we have that. We have somebody that's working for a globalist order. Because everything that we seem to be doing, and even the media, seems to be more interested in globalism than it is in the state of Canada. Crime and disorder, healthcare, everything seems to be boiling over. Everything seems to be worse. I mean, you can tell me what's better. What's better? You can tell me in the comments, and Ian, like what's better since 2015? What's better in Canada since 2015? Let's go Oilers. Yeah, we're going to get her done. I mean, I was living in Edmonton at the time of the heyday. I got to watch some of the best hockey ever in the dynasty. We can't even win a Stanley Cup. What's better? Anything? Anything better?
The food, maybe? That might be something that someone would say.
The food that people can't afford?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Might taste better, but you can't afford it.
The food that people can't afford? I don't know.
What is better?
What is? It's better for the elites. It's 100% better. Like the policies this is the typical thing. The policies that benefit the few at the expense of the many. Like the CEO of the Canada Infrastructure Bank making $1 million a year. Greg Fergus, the Speaker of the House, $273,000 he spent in 1 year just in expenses and his Caribbean vacations. The CBC, Catherine Tate, raking in $500,000 just in base plus bonuses and staying in $1,000 a night Paris hotels, while journalism in Canada craters. And they watch it. They literally watch it crater in Canada. They literally watch it. Do nothing about it. They watch the Online News Act. Everybody knows what the Online News Act has done to media in Canada. And the Liberals like it. It's actually protecting them. They don't allow access to them. So what's better? What's better in British Columbia? What's better in Ontario? Flip-flop forward?
Premier, that's better.
He's pouring out whiskey, lighting F-150s on fire. Like the auto sector is in terrible. It's hanging by a thread. And we're going to turn it over to the Chinese? I don't know. You tell me what's better.
I mean, it's hard to even think what they would say, you know, like the liberal partisans, what would they say? They would say something about some social issues, like the LGBTQ community is more represented and more women in politics, probably. I'm sure they would say that. Child poverty, they would say, is down. But I don't know, really. Other than that, what would they say?
Well, I'm just going to ask you that. I've interviewed the executive director here for the food bank. The food bank had use at record highs, and most of that increase is children. And that came from the stats from the Canadian Food Bank, like the head of that too. So more, like record food bank lineups. Unemployment for our youth in double digits. Meanwhile, immigration at absolute highs. Rent inflation. Again, for the elites and for if you're a government worker, you got it made. You got it, it's doing well. But if you're the average guy, I mean, even our company has suffered dramatically at the hands of these policies. The Online News Act has been brutal for news organizations. Close to 100 have failed already in Canada, more failing. It's not a healthy media landscape in Canada. And if you can't hold government accountable, man, great day for people in power, isn't it?
Somebody here, I don't know if I'm missing the point, but somebody just said you could get a full cart of groceries for $40 to $60. Are you talking about Canada?
In the past, maybe.
I'm very interested. I'm guessing that I haven't.
What is that? That must be the past.
That's been going on, but I don't know. What can you get for $40 now? What can you get? You can get a few carrots.
Well, I went yesterday. I went yesterday, and I didn't even fill up one of those bags, like one of those whatever those shopping bags, and it was $68, and it wasn't anything special in there.
Oh, he's on about Europe then. Harry Wan, Aldi, and they have Aldi and Lidl in the UK as well, and yeah, they're brilliant. You can get a cart full of stuff at shops like that, and they're not like, it's not like really crap low grade stuff like that. They're quite good stores.
So tomorrow we're gonna do their show, and then we're gonna do the members only section after the show. So we'll just jump right into it. We'll start a members. I don't know how, we'll have to talk to our tech guy here and figure out how we do the members one, and we'll do that. So if you're a member, and it's amazing, we have over 100 members now, so that's great. A lot of people watch this aren't subscribers, so if you could subscribe, that'd be appreciated. And if you could share this on your Facebook, that'd be appreciated, because we're banned from Facebook. All media outlets are banned from Facebook in Canada. The only one in the G7. Canada, the only G7 nation that bans its news outlets from Instagram and Facebook. And the Liberals continue to advertise there because they said it's too important of a platform to ignore. They need to get their news out there. Only in Canada. That's our show for today. Priority. That's our show for today. We're back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and we're going to do the members only video after the show as well. So thank you for watching Now Media.